School grade 2 students. They are nationally famous. They were on CBC radio or news, and they are here tonight to sing "O Canada" with their teacher, Madame Beth Gellner, and they're going to sing the Ojibwe version of "O Canada." So please rise.
Where's our crowd going? Well, we had such a large crowd, and half of them are gone now. Should we have made them stay for 15 minutes anyway? What do you think? Is there a supplemental agenda?
No, there is not. However, sorry, I should indicate there is a revised report in front of council, and we can make it available to the public on the website, of the proposed arena complex, which is item 12A2. It's been revised, and it is in front of council now and will be added electronically to the website.
Disclosure of pecuniary interest, direct or indirect, for open session agenda items and the general nature thereof. Seeing none, number 9, planning.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. The planning meeting process will proceed as follows. 1, the clerk will announce the item. 2, the mayor will ask if there is anyone present other than the applicant or their agent with an interest in the item, and to indicate so by raising their hand. 3, individuals present with an interest in the item other than the applicant will be asked to proceed to the podium, provide their name and address, and address council. 4, council will be asked if it has any questions of each presenter and then the applicant. 5, administration will be asked if they have any comments based on discussion that may have occurred. 6, council will be asked what action it wishes to take with regard to the item. If there's no one present indicating an interest in the item, there will be no presentation by administration, and council will be asked what action it wishes to take with regard to the item. Notice, if any person or public body that files an appeal of a decision of council in respect to the proposed application does not make oral or written submissions to the municipal clerk before the council or before the proposal is approved, they are not entitled to appeal a decision to the local planning appeal tribunal if otherwise eligible, unless in the opinion of the tribunal there are reasonable grounds to add the person or public body as party to the appeal. Information on council's actions tonight will be posted on the municipal website. All persons receiving notice of this meeting will receive a notice of the passing of a bylaw relating to any of the planning items presented here tonight, if approved, including appeal procedures. Any other person who wishes to receive a notice of passing or notice of council's decision must submit a written request to the municipal clerk. Thank you.
9A, application for zoning bylaw amendment, Gordon and Gail Ross, 23207, 23213, and 23233 Mull Road, Community of Harwich, South Kent.
Is the applicant, his or her agent present? If so, please raise your hand. None noted. Is there anyone present other than the applicant who wishes to speak to this application? If so, please raise your hand. Seeing none, what action would council like to take with regard to this application? Councillor Latimer.
Be pleased to move that.
Councillor Thompson.
Happy to second it.
Any questions? Seeing none, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes 17-0. 9B, applications for consent and zoning bylaw amendment, Lucille Reed, 4718 Pollard Line, Community of Tilbury East, West Kent.
Is the applicant, his or her agent present? If so, please raise your hand. Noted. Is there anyone present other than the applicant who wishes to speak to this application? If so, please raise your hand. Seeing none, what action would council like to take with regard to this application? Councillor Oche.
I'd like to move this application.
Councillor Harrigan.
I'll second.
Any questions? Seeing none, we'll put it to vote.
Hold on a second.
Councillor Oche.
Sorry. Ryan, I know, through you, your worship, sorry, to Ryan. I know I asked you earlier about this. If he was to decide to farm it later, he would have to come back to us, correct, to change the zoning bylaw, the zoning again? Is that correct?
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. That's correct. There are certain areas of the retained farm parcel that are being zoned to an open space zone category. This zoning will permit the conservation uses that exist on the property today. Those lands would not permit agriculture under zoning. So yes, in the future, to convert those lands to agriculture would require an application to the municipality.
All right, thank you.
Other speaker.
Other speakers, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes 17-0. 9C, application for zoning bylaw amendment, Ridgetown and Area Adult Activity Center, 40 Erie Street South, Community of Ridgetown, East Kent.
Is the applicant, his or her agent present? If so, please raise your hand. Noted. Is there anyone present other than the applicant who wishes to speak to this application? If so, please raise your hand. Seeing none, what action would council like to take with regard to this application? Councillor Wright.
I'd move that, Mayor.
Councillor Pinsino.
Thank you, Worship. I'd be happy to second that.
Any questions? Seeing none, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes 17-0. 9D, application for zoning bylaw amendment, Robert Cartier, 25877 and 25881 Winterline Road, Community of Dover, North Kent.
Is the applicant, his or agent present? If so, please raise your hand. Noted. Is there anyone present other than the applicant who wishes to speak to this application? If so, please raise your hand. Seeing none, what action would council like to take with regard to this application? Councillor Foss.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll move the recommendation.
Councillor Hall.
I'll second.
Any questions? Councillor Pinsino.
Thank you, Worship. This place here has some residential properties fairly close to it. Was all that taken into consideration? I know the person that's applying for it owns the one right there, but there are other. And the reason I'm asking that is there's one in Bothwell right now where the odor is terrible, and the people living right next door to it. I just want to make sure that we're not putting another resident out with the odor from this.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Yes, the surrounding land uses were taken into consideration as part of this application. The main factor which leads me to recommend it be approved is that the building itself is limited to 15,000 square feet, and that's what the zoning will entail, so no expansion of this facility would be able to occur. The growing area internally would be about half that, or 8,000 square feet. Secondly, neighbors in the vicinity all received notice of this planning meeting. We did not receive any objections.
I got a phone call from one. That's why I'm bringing it forward. And anyway, I just, we got to be careful when we're setting these up. You are putting the residents to undue odor and everything else. Anyway, I'm not going to support this one.
Any other questions? Seeing none, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes 13-4. And 9E, applications for draft plan of subdivision and zoning bylaw amendment, CKSL Development Limited, 663 Indian Creek Road West, Community of Chatham City.
Is the applicant, his or agent present? If so, please raise your hand. Noted. Is there anyone present other than the applicant who wishes to speak to this application? If so, please raise your hand. Noted. Administration, you want to start with your presentation?
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. The subject property here is approximately 5.5 hectares or 13.5 acres in area. It currently consists of farmed land and is located immediately southwest of the existing built-up area of Chatham, particularly being the Braemar Boulevard neighborhood with surrounding streets. The applicant has proposed two applications, one for draft plan of subdivision. The draft plan of subdivision proposes 51 lots for single detached residential dwellings. The second application was for zoning bylaw amendment. This application seeks to rezone the subject lands to reduce the minimum lot frontage from 21 meters to approximately 17 meters and reduce the minimum interior side yards or side yard setback from approximately 3 meters to 1.5 meters, as well as remove the minimum gross floor area for a dwelling. The draft plan shown here shows the extension of Dundee Drive, which is an existing very short dead-end street off of Braemar Boulevard to the west. Dundee Drive would bend and turn north with two intersecting cul-de-sac streets. The northerlymost cul-de-sac would provide an eventual secondary connection to a future extension of Kyle Drive south. It should be noted that there is one letter received in opposition to this proposal, which has been signed on by a number of residents in the immediate neighborhood. The gist of the letter, to paraphrase, essentially says that the neighborhood is opposed to the approval of this development until such time Kyle Drive South is extended to Indian Creek Road West. As noted in the planning report, the extension of Kyle Drive South is not recommended as a condition of approval for this particular application. However, in general, it is recommended from a community planning standpoint as a future capital works project undertaken by the municipality. The Kyle Drive South corridor has been planned in the city of Chatham and then Chatham-Kent official plan since the early 1990s. It was identified 10 years ago in the Transportation Master Plan as a high priority, and it maintains its high priority status in the 2020 update, which will come before council next year. Furthermore, this project will be presented early next year, probably at the January 13th meeting, as part of the 2020 Capital Works budget, which IES will be bringing to council next month. And in general, the project of an extension of Kyle Drive South would facilitate further growth in the southwest quadrant, even beyond this particular subdivision that's proposed before council tonight. Therefore, it is recommended that draft plan of subdivision application D12C0119C in part of lot 21 concession 2 in the community of Chatham for draft plan 36T19502, which proposes 51 lots for single detached dwellings, subject to the conditions set out in Appendix D, be approved. As well, that zoning bylaw amendment application D14C2419C in part of lot 21 concession 2 in the community of Chatham, as set out in the planning report, be approved. Thank you.
Does council have any questions of administration? Councillor Latimer.
Through the mayor, Ryan, I'm aware of the concerns with regards to just having Dundee as the access point. It says in here that the owner is going to install and maintain a temporary road to get the service trucks and, you know, just general contractor traffic in and out. Is there any ability to keep that road there until we extend Kyle Drive South, or to, and that's off Indian Creek Road West, right? That's where he wants to put that road?
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Mayor Caniff. That's correct. So as this planning application moved forward, the developer hosted a community open house on October 17th. And it was at that meeting where a number of residents came out, and one of the main concerns that was raised to the developer at that time is not only would this development increase just passenger vehicle traffic in the area from future residents, but also construction vehicle traffic during the build out of the streets as well as home construction. So following that meeting, the developer proposed to amend the draft plan of subdivision application to install a temporary road over what is labeled as lots 5 and 48 on the draft plan. That's towards the right side of the photo, just beside what's called block 52. Through that negotiation with the developer, the planning services amended the draft conditions which are presented tonight for approval to include specific wording that the developer install and maintain a temporary access for construction traffic, and that access remain until the future extension of Kyle Drive South. So that's covered off there. And it's further to that, those two lots are also being zoned to actually prohibit residential construction until such time an application is made to lift the hold, which will come back before council following the future project.
All right.
Councillor Finn.
Just a couple questions. I see the reduction in the lot sizes. Is there a reason why they needed them reduced other than to get more residents in this area?
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Typically, yes, the narrower lot frontage will yield a couple more lots than what would have originally been planned for this area. I should note that part of the reason why there was a 21-meter frontage in the first place is in the 1990s, this particular area of Chatham was being developed on septic systems. The first phase of Braemar Boulevard were developed with septic systems in the front yard. So from a practical standpoint, the larger lots were needed to have that private sanitary service. That's changed. Obviously, there'll be piped municipal sanitary sewer collection. And that goes hand in hand with the decreased interior side yards. So what that suggests to me, and the developer might be able to speak to this if asked, is that the size of the home in theory doesn't change. The narrower lot is offset by the smaller side yards, therefore allowing essentially the same size of house being placed on those properties.
Through you, Your Worship. Just the part where it says no additional parkland dedication and where he's required to provide a payment in cash of lieu, with regards to the parkland and the planting of boulevards. Can you explain that?
I can. Under the Planning Act, municipalities can collect land for parks at a rate of 5% of the total land area of a particular subdivision, or where it's been identified by the municipality that land in that particular subdivision is not required for a park. The developer can be obligated to provide a cash equivalent of 5% the value of that land. That's the position being employed in this approval. The southwest quadrant of Chatham has been planned, as I said earlier, since the early 1990s, and there are various locations where there are neighborhood or regional parks which would serve the eventual need for this subdivision. Currently, Mud Creek Park is one of those parks, and as well as development continues to occur to the west, there'll be more parks brought online in the future.
Councillor Bondi?
Excuse me. Thank you, Mayor Cannon. Ryan, can you speak to the concern of why people are here this evening about the timing of the Kyle Drive extension? The concern is that, we'll talk about it now. I know it's pending council approval of budget, obviously, but in your opinion, would you think that the Kyle Drive extension would be completed prior to the completion of the subdivision, which I don't know how long that's going to take, but that's why people are here, and that's the concern that we've all heard. It's one thing if we say, well, we plan on doing Kyle Drive, which you did touch on, but is that, do you think in 5 years? I know you can't say definitively because we have to approve it, but in your opinion and through your experience, I spoke to Bruce about this as well. Mm-hmm. If you could just elaborate, please.
Yeah. Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Regardless of the timing for build-out of this subdivision or build-out of Kyle Drive, it is not recommended in this approval that the two be linked. In general, over the past 2 years in Chatham, a subdivision with this type of dwelling being built, could see as many as maybe 10 homes being built per year, and that of course could change with changes in the market, which could put the build out of this subdivision at maybe 5 years, for example. That's certainly more than enough time for the municipality to embark on a project to extend Kyle Drive. That project from design and construction could be done in one year. However, in this case, that year wouldn't necessarily start until the project was approved, land was acquired, and the project was initiated. So,
Mr. Mayor, if I can also address that question from a larger growth perspective, this is a very high priority for us to get Kyle Drive extension built. We think that this will facilitate additional housing being built by other property owners. So we would like to see this built as soon as possible. And from our department's perspective, we're going to be recommending this in the budget process and encouraging this to be built as soon as possible.
Great, thanks. Would this be this year's budget? Is it part of the capital for 2020?
So it will be included in the capital budget that's coming to council on January 13th, but it is estimated to fund it in 2020 and it'd be built over 2 years. Basically the land acquisition and design in year one and built in year two. So by the end of 2021, it would be hopefully everything would be finished and completed.
Which would be far in advance of the completion of all the units in this subdivision, presumably. Obviously, we can't say for sure, but okay, that's good. Thanks.
Councillor Sakachi, followed by Councillor O'Jay.
Through you, Your Worship. Thank you. Most of my questions have been answered already. My question was pertaining to how many houses were going to be built per year, but you've already answered that one, as well as the timeline for the extension. But I guess from my perspective is for the temporary road access, what are we going to do municipally to ensure that the construction, they're utilizing that road? Is there anything that we can do in regards to ensuring that? So my thing is that I've heard in other neighborhoods as well, is when we get those concerns, there's really nothing that can be done. For instance, there can't be any signs put up in regards to construction or kids at play or anything like that. So I just want to know what our tools are in place here to help ensure that the recommendation of the truck traffic and the construction traffic is going to be utilized. I very much support growth of Chatham-Kent. That was one of my things that I think is that I think we all think is very important. But we also have to remember that the residents in that area are going to feel safe. So what are we going to do from a standpoint in regards to ensuring that that's going to be utilized as for the construction vehicles?
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. What is proposed during the construction of the subdivision, and by that I am speaking directly to the streets and the sewers and the sidewalks and the streetlights, things of that nature, construction that occurs prior to the creation of the lots and prior to homes. During that initial stage of the project, there will be physical barriers placed at the end of Dundee Drive, so traffic through Dundee off of Braemar will not be able to pass. However, following completion of the streets and the creation of lots, the roadway does become a municipal asset and it becomes an open roadway. So during the time of home construction, we're not able to barricade the street as it needs to remain an open roadway. However, the developer, through consultation with the builders, will endeavor to continue to use that access for home construction traffic. However, at this point, there's nothing in the subdivision approval that would specifically prohibit them from using Dundee Drive.
Okay, kind of answer my question. I didn't think there'd be a tangible thing there to say that they can't utilize. I guess I just wanted to see if there's a way that we can deter them, strongly deter them from utilizing that as a thorough access way. So if they are seeing those concerns, is there anything that we can do from a perspective besides to say it's recommended and not to? That's in our endeavor to ensure that you don't. There's nothing that's going to say that they can't utilize those roads because they're public roadways, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Not that I'm aware of. Public streets, by their nature, are open to all residents and businesses of the community, and home builders being part of that group.
And lastly, if you said that they're doing, you said 4 to 5 a year, is that what you said? Obviously, supply and demand is going to coordinate together, but so that wouldn't mean that they're doing 5 houses at a time. It would be somewhat, 2 or 3 here, basically through the year.
What I would anticipate, based on what I've observed in other neighborhoods, is that there would be several homes under construction at one time, likely by different builders.
Okay, I appreciate your comments, and the road access does change a lot to my perspective, and I appreciate that the builder did look into that to keep the public, opinions intact. Thank you.
Councillor Oche.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Ryan. I guess my question is very similar to Councillor Scacci's here. So we have to open that road as soon as they're done to the public. We can't leave the blocks up and say this will open whenever we get so many houses up that people are actually living in. Because I have a very hard time with people. We're having it right now, and they're in Ward 1 with trucks using roads that they're not supposed that we ask them not to use, but they are using them anyways with the Talbot Trail closure. And I know people are going to use this road, whether they're building a house or whatever they happen to be working on in that area. So I have a hard time with this if we can't somehow keep these people out of that particular area so that all the traffic's not going down a road that we haven't. Sorry, I'm going to skip to another thing. We have a spot in Tilbury that they went and they built a bunch of houses on, and they've just completely wrecked that road. And a gentleman that's here actually just about every Monday night to watch these knows exactly what I'm talking about because he lives on that road as well. So I don't want to see their Braemar being ruined because of the heavy trucks and concrete trucks and everything else going through there. So there's no way that we can keep that closed.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. No, upon final approval and once there's building lots there, the municipality is obligated to have that road open not only for home construction but also for the residents who will be living there in the short term in the first phases of construction.
Can we put a weight limit on it?
I don't know the answer to that question. Perhaps someone from our engineering department can speak to that.
you, Mike. So just to clarify the question is if we go to weight limit on the local roads leading into the Dundee there?
Right, like on Braemar.
It's not recommended only because basically there's going to be means of construction activity happening in proximity to there, and to try, I think by means of having that temporary road in place to service Dundee, the contractor and the home builders will continue to utilize that temporary road until such time that Kyle is extended, which will be the preferred route and entrance into the subdivision. That temporary access there off of Indian Creek will be watched over by our Public Works team and actively making sure that it's properly kept up by the developer, by the home builder, et cetera. And that would be the preferred route rather than trying to restrict it, because then it comes down to an enforcement matter as well too, with you're putting a load restriction on all the local roads within. And really, I think just utilizing that temporary road in Block 5 and Lot 5 and Lot 48 there is going to serve the purpose of kind of protecting all the homeowners along Braemar.
So, Your Worship, the problem is that they don't have to use that, right? They can use Braemar, and we as a council and the EMS and EMT, everybody should, EMT, not EMS, should be worried about our streets being crushed. And I'm not making this up because I've seen it in Tilbury. You go on Kelly Crescent. They put all those new townhouses on there. That road is a mess now. So I'm really worried about this situation we're going to have here. So without some type of way of doing this, I definitely can't support this.
One thing I would like to add too is just in speaking, what we can do is we could look into putting some signs up within the neighborhood just to try and promote use of that temporary road and prohibit that kind of use of heavy traffic within Braemar on those streets. But it will be kind of communication once those signs are up in communication with our police enforcement team just to make sure that it's adhered to.
Thanks, Chris.
Councillor Solomon.
Thank you, Worship. I'm pleased to see that we're going to put the Kyle Drive extension in the capital budget. I think that's a good solution, as good a solution as we're going to get right now. My question, though, from that is Indian Creek Road. By the way, last week 40-kilometer-an-hour signs went up in that stretch, so that slows things down a bit there. Not necessarily for the subdivision because Indian Creek Road School's there, but there's also a subdivision plan that's an old one that's on the south side of Indian Creek Road west. And what I'd like to know is, and what I'd like to see is that Indian Creek Road from LaCroix to Howard, because it reaches a certain point where it is tar and chip, but before that it's all broken up right now anyway. So if you're going to add a subdivision and you're going to add Kyle Drive, I think there should be in our capital budget the repair of Indian Creek Road West from Kyle to Howard. Can you tell me whether that's planned? And if it isn't planned, why isn't it planned given, well, the condition of the road's bad enough. It's rattles your teeth, but it's going to be worse because you're going to be introducing the trucks to the temporary road, which happens to be Indian Creek Road.
Okay.
So, I mean, you should do it all as one. They should both be in the capital budget together, logically.
So this, thank you, Your Worship. This kind of goes to the point John was making. So this is a growth area of Chatham, right? It's this area in the northwest are your two major growth areas in Chatham. The plan does set out all these eventual road improvements in that area, obviously one being Indian Creek over to Howard. Actually, Howard itself needs to be improved, as does Park Avenue West actually needs to be upgraded to a full urban cross-section and as growth occurs. In the master plan, the transportation master plan that Chris acknowledged, all these are now identified as capital projects that will be prioritized over the next few years, really at the pace of growth. Mm-hmm.
Does that answer my question of whether...
Will it be done right away?
No, I'm not asking that. It's at the same time as you do Kyle Extension. It doesn't make much sense to me that you'd lead Kyle Extension onto a broken up road.
Indian Creek will be improved up to Kyle Extension at this point by the developer because he has holdings on both sides of the road.
Right.
Eventually then the next piece will be to look to extending Indian Creek to the west. The other part of that is the underground infrastructure that's necessary to go with it, Councillor Solomon, that has to be installed as well. And obviously sewers and water mains.
And at that point, is Indian Creek Road West tar and chip, or is that asphalt? The section we're looking at right there.
That section will be improved to a full urban cross section.
And what I was asking about is once you improve that, and I've asked our engineering people to look at the other part in the past. I think 2 weeks ago. A week ago, it's all broken up from LaCroix to this point where it turns into tar and chip. So I'm not just talking about this area which is tar and chip. I realize you're going to have to put sewers and you're going to have to do that infrastructure work. But if you're going to tear it up, I'd hate to see it torn up. What the public really hates is things torn up twice, and they can't figure out why we do that. Neither can I.
Thank you, Mayor Kenneth. So the condition of Indian Creek from LaCroix to this location of Kyle, it starts off as asphalt, turns into tar and chip. I forget the exact limits about where, and then it's tar and chip all the way down to Howard. So again, in the capital plan, it'll be recommended as a priority to do all of Indian Creek at some point there to all of asphalt. The condition of Indian Creek, the asphalt condition, we're going to have up-to-date road ratings for that section of road early next year that we evaluated, and we'll be able to determine where that lands on our priority list for hot mix for the asphalt restoration. And then the condition of the tar and chip, I do believe that is identified within the next year or two for improvement because it's recognized as it is in poor condition. But it will be included in the capital plan at least to bring the asphalt up to a certain limit to Kyle either through the capital process or through the development, as Bruce was saying. And then beyond that point will be continue to be maintained as a tar and chip road until such time council approves the prioritization and budget to make that an asphalt surface as well.
What that has become is not just because of the subdivision growth that's going to be in this subdivision approval, the one on the south, the one that's to the north of this that isn't developed yet, but it's also the exit from the Bloomfield exit from the highway, which hasn't been used for a while because of the construction on the 401. But you go by there in the morning and you can see vehicles streaming into town, down Indian Creek. At the end of the day, you can see them going the other way to get out to the 401. So it should be planned for the future and coordinated with these subdivisions is all I'm trying to get across. And it sounds to me like you're saying yes to that.
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor B. McGregor.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Just wanted to get some clarity on what we mean when we say it's in the capital budget. So I'm sure everyone follows the capital budget report every year. But how it works is we get this list of projects back, all ranked, and based on how we fund it, that's how far down the list we get. So I think what people really want to understand is the Kyle Drive project going to be above that cut line on the capital budget or below that cut line?
Thank you, Mayor Kenneth. So the capital budget is being prepared. It will be presented to council on January the 13th. As of right now, it is going to be administration's recommendation that Kyle will be above that cut line. It is a very high priority through us as well.
Excellent. Thank you.
Councillor Voss.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Just a question. I might not have it clear, but are you saying that you're going to eventually upgrade the tar and chip on Indian Creek to asphalt?
Thank you, Mayor Kenneth. So yes, Indian Creek, all the tar and chip right now is identified in the capital plan. Again, I can't recall the priority of that one offhand. I knew Kyle Drive, but not Indian Creek. But it is recognized to be upgraded to a proper urban cross section, which is an asphalt surface.
Okay, we have a road upgrade policy. Why doesn't that fall under that road upgrade policy?
So the road upgrade policy is recommended for local roads and for collector roads. Both Kyle Drive and Indian Creek are identified as arterial roads. So they serve the greater public. They also, in the road upgrade policy, it does make reference to arterial roads and the transportation master plan. So if it's identified as a priority through the transportation master plan, then it will be brought forward as a capital project through council at the prioritization rate of council under that capital plan process. However, the road upgrade policy does provide a mechanism should they not want to wait for that prioritization to come. They want that to happen sooner. There's still that mechanism for them to trigger it sooner than later.
So the difference between the other ones that have been presented to council don't meet the criteria because they're not arterial roads.
They're both not arterial roads, nor are they recommended for upgrade and improvement through the transportation master plan. They are a direct benefit to the public that the road serves, only.
Okay, I'm just hoping we're not going down an area there that we may regret down the road, because I know that there's a lot of requests for Ford Road upgrades. But if it states in the policy that arterial roads are exempt from that, okay.
That's correct, yes.
All right, okay, thank you.
Yep.
Would the individual who had an interest in the application please proceed to the podium? Please state your name and address for the record, and you may address council with your comments, concerns, or questions.
Your Worship, and members of council, my name is Ennio Sulo. I am the spokesperson for a group comprised of 88 homeowners and representing 47 single-family dwellings in the vicinity of the proposed subdivision development. Next to me with me, Greg Davenport at 23 Braemar Boulevard, and Chris DeLine at 107 Braemar Boulevard. And these two individuals may help me answer any questions you may have at the conclusion of my presentation. Some members of the group are here tonight, and I would ask that they raise their hands to identify themselves. Thank you. During the months leading up to tonight's public meeting, many in our group have actively participated and provided ongoing input on this project to both the developer and municipal planning staff. We also submitted comments pertinent to this development on the municipality's transportation master plan, which is currently being completed. Our group's position with respect to the approval of this development has remained unchanged since the start of the process. We understand that ongoing orderly development is a positive for our community, and we encourage council to continue supporting such growth. However, under the current circumstances, we are opposed to the approval of this development until such time as Kyle Drive South is extended to Indian Creek Road South. There are three reasons why we have taken this position. First, Braemar Boulevard was originally designed and intended as a local residential street comprised of single detached homes with growing families. However, because Kyle Drive South is dead-ended, Braemar Boulevard currently substitutes as a throughway for north-south traffic between Tweedsmuir Avenue West and Indian Creek Road West. As such, Braemar Boulevard has de facto been transformed from a local residential street to an urban collector road, which has resulted in significant traffic issues as well as pavement degradation. If approved, this project will further increase the traffic and accelerate pavement degradation, making an already bad situation worse. Second, the proposed development has only one entrance off Dundee Drive. For safety reasons, we believe it is imprudent to have only one access to a subdivision of this size. The situation will only be remedied when Kyle Drive South is extended to Indian Creek Road West. And third, the project will inevitably result in undesirable construction traffic on Dundee Drive and Braemar Boulevard. While the condition proposed by administration to limit construction traffic access to Indian Creek Road West will be helpful in eliminating construction traffic on Dundee Drive, it does little to alleviate said traffic along Braemar Boulevard. All the construction vehicles need do is drive onto Indian Creek and come up Braemar. It's only a very few hundred feet to the south end of Braemar Boulevard. As a way forward, we request Council pass a resolution tonight committing to the inclusion of Kyle Drive South extension to Indian Creek Road West in the 2020 capital budget, with construction to be completed by the end of 2020. Failing that, this group will remain opposed to this project until such time as said resolution is passed by Council. Our group would also like to draw your attention to one other matter, that is the unnecessary creation of remnant and sometimes derelict parcels of land that must be maintained by the municipality in perpetuity at the expense of the taxpayers. Such parcels are prominently right now along the newly developed areas of Kyle Drive South, Tweedsmuir Avenue West, and the adjacent Braemar Boulevard. The proposed plan of subdivision as presented shows lots backing onto the future Kyle Drive South. This will again result in an undesirable remnant boulevard along the future Kyle Drive South. Our group believes additional care is required at the design stage in order to eliminate or minimize the creation of remnant parcels of land. Thank you for your attention. Chris and Greg, if you want to join me up here, I would be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Does council have any questions of the presenter? Councillor Bondi.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Guys, I know that your deputation was pre-written, but after what you've heard tonight, has your opinion changed? Do you support the approval of the application? Because you did get, probably somewhat of a insight as to the capital budget that I don't think we can make a resolution tonight to individually do one it's a overall budget that, as you understand, there's a list of different projects, and that's what's approved. So from what you've heard from planning and engineering tonight, are you comfortable with the timelines?
Simple answer is no. The construction of Kyle Drive extension to Indian Creek Road, in the humble opinion of this group, is that it should have been done many years ago. We are now at the 11th hour, and we are not satisfied with anything but such resolution. And we will conduct ourselves accordingly until such time as said resolution is passed. If any of my colleagues here would like to add to that.
Thank you. Excuse me. I think what we have to also, sorry, I've got a bad cough going on here. Consider is this is 50 lot subdivision. There's 70 lots across the road, which is going to get proposed or is proposed. There's 390 homes proposed by Maple City Homes, and not far away. Council just approved, 18 million in reserves for a casino, or sorry, not a casino, but a potential arena located potentially on the southwest side. Just built a casino in that area. There's 3 schools that house between Indian Creek, McGregor, and the Christian school, 1,200 kids that are up and down that street every day.
And I don't think it's a surprise to anybody that both school boards are looking at putting a potential super high school in the south side also. So all this is coming together quickly, and I guess what we want to do is make sure that it's properly planned from a safety standpoint and proper access for sure. The lots 4 and 48, all that's going to do is allow you to come in and out of that. They're going to turn left and go down Braemar if they want to go north. I doubt they'll go right, go down Howard, and then come back. It's an idea, but I don't think it's going to work. Chris, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, no, thank you for speaking, allowing us to speak tonight. Basically, it comes down to, I've been in the neighborhood for 10 years. We moved into a dead-end street as a quiet street. We understood that it was going to eventually open up. But as other developments have gone on, the traffic has just increased so many times over full that there's a lot of kids in the neighborhood, a lot of kids that want to play street hockey that they're confined to their driveways with, or basketball nets up and down the street. You can see it's a family neighborhood. And really what it's come down to is the traffic that's increased already we see, and what's going to increase in this subdivision, the next one that goes across on the other side of Indian Creek Road, it's just going to continue to get worse and worse. So what we're looking for is, again, not to stop development, but for this Indian Creek or Kyle Drive extension to be completed by the end of next year. And I think that would be a perfect situation for the neighbors that are here and also for the developer. Thank you.
Councillor Scotchy?
Yeah. Sorry, Mayor Camp, can I just continue? An idea might be that we could defer this application until after the capital budget, rather than, deny it tonight. Just put it off until, the capital budget presumably will be approved in your favor. Would that give you guys more?
I think we've been abundantly clear. The community that I speak for, including myself, will remain opposed until such resolution is passed. And if that takes till January for that resolution to pass, then we remain opposed until then.
So that might work if we deferred this until after budget.
Good.
Can I move to defer it?
Yes, at this point you can.
So moved.
All right. So you're
to move the application to a planning meeting post.
You'll be given a chance.
Oh,
yes. We need to go through the whole.
Oh, that's fine.
Okay, so we're not going to be voting on anything until everyone's heard. So we're putting that on the floor. Councillor Bondi's set it forward, is seconded by Councillor Oche. So we'll put that aside. And any other questions of the presenter?
No, I think I'm finished. Thank you.
Councillor Sakachi.
No, I'm okay right now. My comments were to hear it all through and see if that was an option, but we're already at that point right now, so.
At this point, the applicant have any comments? This is your chance here.
My name's Henry Hayek. I'm speaking on behalf of the owners. There's 4 of us. Anyway, I went to the public meeting and I understand what their concerns are. But it's not about the subdivision, it's all about Kyle Drive. And I don't know how we consciously can make, this council can make a decision today to turn it down. I have went out of my way to stop the traffic. I'll put concrete barriers in there, like I said, and we actually don't have to move the concrete barriers till the first person moves in. I can reassure that all traffic from truck-wise, we'll be going through that because I'll make sure of that because I'm also the contractor that's going to develop it. So I can make sure that there be no concrete trucks, no gravel trucks. Like my men are, I'll tell them to go the other way too, but I can't enforce. But the big trucks will be none on this project until people move in. We have some sold. There's a big interest in this because it's going to be houses in the $750,000 range. So there's no lots available. I sold out a Legacy. The other two subdivisions south of me, they're all sold out. So there's a demand for it. I would realistically, this is a 7-year project I figured to get done. If I go by Legacy, which I owned, if we did build 7 houses next year, if we build 5 houses, I'd be happy. So I see it as a 7-year project. So I'm saying we can keep all the heavy traffic. I will put in the builder's contract that they have to, all cement trucks, all heavy gravel trucks, machinery has to go through there. I'm not going to stand and watch them, but we can. I'll tell it right, and I want them to, and most of them will listen because they're qualified builders, or at least most of the time they listen to me. Anyway, so I'm doing my utmost to keep the traffic off, and so you're going to have maybe next year, maybe 5 people. They each own 2 cars, 10 cars. That's all you're going to have. So I don't see. Like I said, I feel that I understand what they're doing, what the problem is, but I didn't create that. Tuscany, that created most of it, and they opened up off of Indian Creek there, or not Tweedsmuir. That's what caused it. So why do we as a group get punished for something that is really needed in this in Chatham? There's no subdivisions are going to be like it. And there's lots of interest, trust me. So I think I went out of my way, and I can leave that, and we have to look after the road, which is fine. I made a commitment to that because we'll be working there anyway, the temporary road. So I'm just saying, I know we can delay. We delayed it. It was supposed to be on last month's council meeting, and then you had this transportation thing, which I was advised to wait for. So you've sort of, what I hear, and that you're sort of making a commitment, but not on the extension of Kyle Drive. But I know there's a lot of work involved. You got to get ownership of land. You got many hoops to go through. So to say it's going to be done realistically by the end of next year, I think it's impossible. And Eno should know that. He's an engineer. He knows exactly it takes time.
Any other comments before I open up to questions?
Nope. That's it.
Councillor Pinsino, followed by Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Worship. We need to promote growth here in our community. I have to agree with the contractor. We need to deal with this tonight. I think we're short-sighted to put this off until we have a decision on whether Kyle Street Extension is going through or not. Right now, the economy is booming, and I think we need to move forward building these houses. Now, I understand the concerns of the residents that live there. However, the contractor has told us here, and we're on television, that he's going to comply with their concerns. And honestly, we need to deal with it tonight, and we need to move it forward. Thanks.
Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, I would very much echo Councillor Pinsino's comments, and I wanted to say thank you to Mr. Heineck for actually making a comment for me that we aren't really dealing with that many cars on the road in this situation. And I fully admit I'm one of the folks that takes the other road, Braemar, to cut through. Actually, I use it 3 or 4 times a week. But the fact of the matter is I'm not sure why a capital budget conversation broke out tonight when we were trying to deal with this particular issue. We need the growth. Let's be honest, around this table, we need the tax dollars, no doubt about that. We talk about cutting red tape, and at the same time, we're throwing up a whole bunch of red tape potentially tonight. So I would very much be in support of this. Like I said, I think it is something we need to do. I would like to see it built quicker, to be honest, but if it takes 7 years, I can respect that. With lots being sold, there are people that want to move into their homes as soon as they can. I do understand the concerns of the folks living around there, but I'm sure the people that lived around there before that survey was built had concerns too. And we have to allow for that, and we have to understand that, and we have to do our best job moving forward, but we have to move forward, and we have to do that tonight.
Councillor Harrigan.
Thank you. Just a couple of questions for my own clarity. First, to the developer, thank you for your comments. When you indicate that it's a 7-year project, just because I'm not in construction, that means basically all those lots it would take, your estimation would be about 7 years to completely fill those lots.
We're doing phase 1, which is 25 lots. If it gets approved tonight, so that's our goal, is to do phase 1. So I figure we don't know what the economy is going to be like, but right now the way it's going, I would say we start phase 2 3 years from now.
Okay. And then through the mayor to engineering, if we did approve, so right now this is a planning meeting. Our next meeting is actually January 13th, which I believe is slated for the capital discussion. If the Kyle Drive extension was approved at that capital discussion on January 13th, what's our best case, worst case scenario of when that road's done? Being honest about what we know about sometimes our construction timelines.
Thank you, Mayor Kempf. So if approved on January 13th, engineering will proceed with securing a consultant, moving forward with the detailed design, acquiring the land. As per Gord's estimate of about approximately 2 years, that is a fair assessment. Completion hopefully by mid to late 2021.
Okay, so then it sounds like the road would be completed before phase 2 of the development process would take place.
Based on Henry's estimate for phase 2, that's correct.
Okay, so just a kind of a comment about timing, and I absolutely hear some of the concerns of the residents, but when I think about the planning process and the development process, if this was presented us back in July, we wouldn't imagine waiting 6 months to approve something because of capital timeline. Private sector developers have their own timelines and their own bottom lines that they need to meet, and the municipality has its own cycle of approvals for things. It's a bit ironic that, of course, this is just one meeting before the capital planning. This probably would have been much smoother of a conversation if it was a month from now, but I will be supporting this, and I want to reassure residents that I will also be supporting the Kyle Drive extension. So I see this more as a timing issue rather than it is, whether or not I'm supporting the developer or supporting the residents. I think I can do both, and it's just simply a matter of when things are coming to council in the order that they're coming to council. So just my comments.
Councillor Latimer.
Point of order, I think our CFO had a comment.
Sorry, I apologize. Mr. Quinton.
Just in comment about a potential solution for that. If council were to make a motion tonight that be funded in the capital budget, not to be ranked, but just make a decision that yes, that's a go project, to be funded from federal gas tax funds that you approved to be put to the capital budget at the last meeting. So the funding's in place. You could move that tonight. It's still a 24-month build, though. But leave that up to council if anyone wishes.
Just, sorry, well, if I still have the floor, I'd cautious about the slippery slope of that, where we don't want to be perceived as connecting capital projects to developers. If this project has been on, our growth strategy, and it's something that we're hearing from residents as being needed, then we don't need to tie that to the developer. They're independent of each other. So I would hate for us to say, to approve this development, we're going to put a bunch of capital onto the road. I think that opens up the gates for more developers to ask for more capital projects to be tied to their developments when maybe it's in a less high traffic area. It's just my comment there. I think the people in the audience can be reassured that if this is approved tonight, then at our next council meeting, it's recommended and it will be approved that Kyle Drive extension will be funded.
Councillor Latimer.
Thank you, through your worship. I totally echo Councillor Harrigan's words, and I also want to reassure the residents, because I do know there's a concern there, that it really is a traffic calming and a speed enforcement issue and a road maintenance issue. And I encourage you to call in your concerns, because the more you talk about that and make us aware of speed concerns, then the more we have attention to it. Okay, so don't feel badly about doing that. But I also want to reassure them. I also thank Mr. Hynek for coming and reassure you that the developers, that Kyle Drive very much is on the mind, as you heard Councillor Harrigan state. So I think everybody's objectives can be reached here, just maybe not on the timelines that have been asked for tonight, but they're pretty close. Seeing as our next meeting is January the 13th.
Any other questions? I just want to add as well that yes, Kyle Drive is ever since I've been here has been discussed, but it's getting more and more serious, and certainly it's a critical development to the municipality to open that up, to open up the whole south. So I agree that the timelines won't be met exactly, but I'm given the priority on it, I'm pretty sure that it's going to be approved on January 13th, and say just looking at the facial expressions, etc. But it's a very important. So with that, we will go to Councillor Bondi's motion to defer this. Is that something you still want to go after the discussion? You still want to keep that going?
No, I can read the tea leaves. Like, it's not going to happen. So.
Okay, so you're going to pull your motion?
I don't want to have 3 losses in a row. Like 2 is okay. But, that would be 3 and you're out. So I'll pull that respectfully.
Okay, so what action would Councillor Harrigan?
I'll move the recommendation.
Seconded by Councillor Crew. Any other questions? Seeing, Councillor Scotchy.
Just through to yourself, Ryan. So I just wanted to say, this is something I make sure I look at now at the end of the reports all the time. It did say in here, though, the majority of those in attendance were not against the development in general, nor specifically the Midwood subdivision. Is that accurate? To say that a majority was not opposed?
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Those comments are prepared by the planning consultant retained by the developer, and so I can't.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no other questions, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes 15-2.
Okay. Item 10.
Oh, sorry.
Announcement by Mayor.
Road closing and transfer, Bradley Farms Limited.
Consideration of proposed declaration to close multiple road allowances depicted in 24R 10629 and 24R 10632. The properties being considered to be closed legally described as Parts 1 and 2 Reference Plan 24R 10629 being part of PIN 007820053, Part 2 Reference Plan 24R 10632 being part of PIN 007760002, and Part 6789 Reference Plan 24R 10632 being all of PIN 007760020. On December 2nd, 2019, a notice of intention to close the above noted roads was published in the Tilbury Times newspaper for 1 week, and on November 25th, 2019 on the municipal website for a 2-week period. I will now invite any person wishing to be heard to approach the podium and give reasons why their lands will be adversely affected by this declaration to close these roads. Seeing none, Councillor Foss?
Thank you, Worship. I'd like to move the recommendations.
Councillor Finn?
I'll second.
Any questions? Seeing none, we'll put it to vote.
Councillor Wright? Thank you. All votes are in. Motion passes 17-0. Thank you. Council and Mayor, I would like to move forward corporate services number 18, the 2 items under there. The first one being 18A, amending appointment bylaw, followed by the appointment bylaw for the fire chief. First report, 18A, amending appointment bylaw.
Okay, item 18A. Councillor Latimer?
Move the recommendation.
Councillor Kirkwood-White,
And I'll second.
any questions? Seeing none, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes 17-0. 18B, appointment bylaw fire chief.
John?
Mr. Mayor, I would like to begin by thanking Chief Crawford for his many years of service. And we're going to acknowledge that, I think, at the end of the meeting more formally with some words by the mayor. So I'll leave that alone for now. But given the retirement, we began a recruitment process. We went through many applications, many interviews, and we were very pleased to choose Chris Case as our next fire chief. Chief Case is here tonight, having immigrated all the way from England with his family in 2015. I'm going to ask Chief Case to stand along with Mrs. Michelle Case. Their two children are here, Isabel and Charlotte, and they also have two other children who are unable to make it tonight, Abigail and Samuel. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Pinsino.
I'd like to move the recommendations.
Councillor B. McGregor.
Pleased to second it.
Any questions? I just want to make a comment that I've known Chris since the first time I met him was we were at a rib eating contest and we were judges. So I looked over at him, started talking to him and learned a little bit about him. I've heard nothing but amazing things about him in the community. He's certainly a super community guy. Him and his family are getting out there. He's out there everywhere. He's promoting our community. We couldn't have selected a better candidate. I'd like to thank you for accepting the role. And now we'll make it official once we actually put this to vote. Well, it's a real barn burner here, whether... So you better sit down for this one. Okay, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes 17-0.
It's unanimous. There we go. Time to get back to our regularly scheduled events. Item 11, deputations.
Thank you, Council. This evening we have 4 speakers. The first one is Rose Linesman. Item 17C, Opportunity Villages Community Land Trust. I'll remind all speakers this evening that there's a maximum of 5 minutes. The timer will be on the screen. Welcome Rose to the podium. On deck will be Harry Lawson.
Good evening, Mayor Caniff, councillors, municipal staff, residents of Chatham-Kent, and visitors. Today, I stand here in support of a non-for-profit community group, the Opportunity Village Community Land Trust, that is looking to make a systemic change and a leap forward in home ownership, affordability, and availability in Chatham-Kent. My name is Rose Linsman. I was born in Mount Forest, Ontario, to a rural farming family, but grew up in the city of Waterloo. In 2014, my partner, John Fry, and I purchased our first home and made the move to Bothwell. In our search for a new place to call home, we looked all over the place in Ontario, but in the end, we chose Chatham-Kent. We chose Chatham-Kent, in all honesty, as it was one of the places we could afford to purchase a home, as well as afford to begin John's upholstery furniture business, J.M. Fry Furniture Design. We worked from home before opening up our storefront in downtown Chatham in the spring of 2016, just after having our baby girl Zoe. I currently manage J.M. Fry Furniture Design just down the street from here. And in 2018, I started my own business, Rad Studio, an architectural design studio that specializes in smaller and more eco-friendly homes. Earlier this year in 2019, I expanded my business and opened an eco section within our store. I'm a mother. I run 2 businesses, one of which I own. I also work part-time for another architectural design firm in Dresden. I own a home in Bothwell, and my business partner, John, owns a home here in Chatham, both of which are in the midst of renovations. We came here to Chatham-Kent to grow our businesses and our lives because of its affordability, so that we can make the future that we desired possible. but I'm here today to speak about how Chatham-Kent has become so unaffordable for some, as housing costs rise across Ontario and Canada. Today, I would like to support a change to help others to be able to afford a home. When we moved here in 2014, about 5 years ago, there were many homes under 100,000, albeit some fixer-uppers, but there are also many under 200,000 that needed no changes whatsoever. The average price for a home in Chatham-Kent in 2014 was just over 152,000. In October of this year, the year-to-date average reached 252,147. That's an average increase of 100,000 in just 5 years. That is an almost 70% increase in costs. This is not to mention that this is the average, not the starting price. Currently, there are just under 30 single-family homes that are livable, listed on Realtor.ca under 200,000. In the spring, the Chatham Daily News noted that there are only 240 units for sale, where we should have around 600. Our area struggles at having enough listing in total, not just in terms of more affordable homes. I'm a member of a community group called the Opportunity Village Community Land Trust. Our group has come together to create a system that would address these aforementioned issues by building smaller homes that could be built more affordable and more sustainable in their footprint, that could be held in a non-for-profit trust so that homes could not be flipped and simply resold at higher prices. The system allows the buildings to stay affordable. We are not limiting this development to one demographic, but opening up this community to becoming just that, a diverse community. Chatham-Kent needs housing of all types and all price points. Currently, there are programs to help create homes for the rental market, but there is more need, and there are little to no options to create affordable home ownership. To afford the average $250,000 home in Chatham-Kent, using the 30% rule, you will need to make a minimum of $75,000 a year. With no credit card debt, no loans, no car loans, no student loans, etc. At a minimum wage of $15 an hour, the annual income comes in at about $30,000 a year. So even a double income household could not afford the average home, let alone be able to save up a minimum $25,000 down payment to acquire it. This also precludes all those who are working that are single. Last year it was noted that the average wait time for a one-bedroom unit was 3.5 years for affordable social housing. Our community needs to have options that will allow long-term affordability of homes in this market, and I believe the support of this project is necessary for the growth and well-being of Chatham-Kent. I personally believe that we need to give individuals the opportunity for hope and growth in their lives. Others deserve the chance that I had to own their own home, grow a business or two, and have a young family here. I would appreciate your support for this to happen. Thank you for your time.
Good timing. Next speaker is Harry Lawson, item 16B, request for proposal award consulting engineering services for the replacement of the McDougall Line Bridge. On deck will be John Willett.
Mayor Caniff and members of council. I'm here once again representing the Kent Federation of Agriculture's membership, and I'm here to speak in favor of the McDougall Line Bridge replacement. First, I'd like to point out that the $500,000 included in the report for Queen's Line intersection realignment is at the other end of McDougall Line and should not be considered in your deliberations regarding whether or not you proceed with the bridge replacement. It is noted that the realignment is included to mitigate the risk during construction. However, with the severe weight restrictions on the bridge existing now, that's already a risk. And so I would suggest that maybe there's better options to, rather than realign that intersection beforehand, is possibly posting it as a construction zone with reduced speed and signage, and maybe that's adequate to mitigate the risk during construction. But $500,000 for something that, if the bridge is replaced, wouldn't be needed afterwards. So why spend $500,000 now that's going to be really redundant in the future? So that, by replacing the bridge, that will practically eliminate the need to make left-hand turns onto the heavily traveled Queens Line, which, like I said, reduces the liability to the municipality. And common sense would show that if the bridge is replaced, any farmer or motorist needing to travel east would use the access onto Merlin Road. So that would reduce the need for the realignment. Now, to comment on the most effective business is the beef farm there. It's a value-added enterprise tied to a land base, which must be considered as a production unit which operates 7 days a week, 52 weeks a year. Cattle got to be fed. So if Chatham-Kent were to put a wall between two components of a commercial or industrial unit, that operation would move elsewhere. The problem is farms don't have that option. So now we've been told, we understand that farmers are not engineers, and neither are engineers farmers. So to properly understand the transportation challenges would be created by totally closing that bridge, engineers need to have first-hand practical experience, which they could gain by doing a ride-along by occupying the so-called instructor seat in a farm tractor. We call them banker seats, but their proper title is instructor seats. So if an engineer rode in that tractor for a day during harvest or hauling manure or something like that, where they're using the road continually, because engineers are numbers people, they would be able to, in a position to quantify the increased time and costs created by a long detour. So in closing, we ask that council, you as council, look at the big picture and make the right decision here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is John Willett on item 17A, proposed sale of WDC Rail to 2719545 Ontario Inc. On deck is Family Service Kent Drug Awareness Council.
Good evening, Mayor Caniff. Good evening, Council. My name is John Willett, and I'm here this evening because I disagree with the proposed sale of the WDC assets, which is an agenda item later this evening. Firstly, I believe that this has been sprung on the public, giving them little time to respond. And while I don't know what information was given to councillors in camera, administration could, I believe, have released a media report some months ago which stated that they were in conversations with a potential purchaser without revealing the purchaser's name, and this would have allowed more time for public input. I believe that the track should be converted into a multi-use trail, a policy that councillors supported on the Integris property south of Chatham, and selling would prevent this and cause several other problems. These include the future of the Black Bridge in Chatham, preserving rail access to Wallaceburg and the future of the Wallaceburg Swing Bridge, rail bridge, and a possible realignment of Given Road to remove the dangerous bend. Plus, for your information, there's a water main that serves Dresden that runs alongside the railway track. While an offer of $5 million sounds like a lot of money, it must be remembered that the rails alone are worth $3 million. The track ballast has a value which your engineering department can tell you what it's worth, and so you're selling a strip of land which isn't 60 kilometres long, it's actually about 46 kilometres long, perhaps 10 metres wide, for perhaps $1 to $2 million, and by selling it, denying access to it for both current and future generations of residents and tourists. I'm also concerned at the use of a numbered company by the purchaser to hide his identity, or her identity, sorry. I would ask Council not to proceed with the sale at this time and to begin consultations with residents to discuss the future of the property. And just on the Black Bridge, it's had a bit of a notorious history, and unfortunately it does tend to be a bit of a thieves' shortcut, but things change. The rail access to Wallaceburg, that would be from Highway 40 down more or less to No Frills, and then that strip plus the bridge. Once they're gone, then Wallaceburg's chance of ever having a rail link is gone forever. And every time I go up Given Road, I come to that dangerous little corner, and I think, wow, if we just took that road a little bit onto the railway track, we could make it an awful lot safer. So thank you, and I hope you'll consider my points. Thank you.
Thank you. Last speaker for under deputations is Family Service Kent Drug Awareness Council, item 12A3, Harm Reduction Program Update.
Good evening, Mayor Caniff, Council and Administration. My name is Scott Roos, and I'm speaking to you tonight as a member of the Chatham-Kent Drug Awareness Council, and I come to you as a person with lived experience using substances. The Drug Awareness Council has many partners at the table, including business owners, service providers, government, persons with lived and living experience, community groups, and concerned residents. There's a strong understanding amongst our group that no one person or organization can help to overcome the challenges that face our community with relation to substance use. We must work together. We would like to acknowledge our partnership with the Chatham-Kent Public Health Unit and thank them for their work and support of harm reduction in our community. In particular, we wish to highlight an action of harm reduction not captured in tonight's report, being Chatham-Kent Board of Health's endorsement of a motion put forward on drug decriminalization, recognizing that, in the words of Dr. Colby, our local medical officer of health, the war on drugs has not worked. In addition, Public Health was also instrumental in helping educate our community on harm reduction by being a lead partner in the 2018 What's the Harm in Harm Reduction Conference that originally was intended to host 40 to 60 people, that quickly grew to over 400 attendees, becoming standing room only at the Bradley Center. We wanted to take a moment tonight to help highlight the urgency of the situation at hand from the viewpoint of those providing frontline services in the community of folks who use substances. To provide a single example of many, I would like to now introduce a fellow Drug Awareness Council member, Delynn Merlot, pharmacist and owner of the Shoppers Drug Mart in Wallaceburg, to share her frontline experience.
Good evening. As a pharmacy and business owner in Wallaceburg, I have been keenly aware for many years of how problematic substance use was affecting our local community. In 2017, there was an opportunity to partner with a pilot program aimed at reducing the harms associated with drug use. Harms such as the spread of HIV, hepatitis B and C, sexually transmitted infections, ER visits, hospitalizations, drug poisonings that can result in permanent injuries or death. Part of this work included serving as a satellite site where people who are actively using drugs could pick up kits aimed at helping to reduce the harms that I just mentioned, receive brief health education teaching, and get connected to services if needed. Currently, I see on average 15 clients a day in my pharmacy and distribute about 300 kits of safer injection equipment, 150 safer crystal meth smoking kits, about 75 safer crack smoking kits, numerous sharps containers, abscess kits, condoms, and naloxone kits every week. In addition, I also take back sharps containers for safe disposal and have become an unofficial place in Wallaceburg to bring syringes found on the street and in abandoned properties in town. I am happy to know that people have a safe place to dispose of their sharps. However, due to increased volume, unfortunately, I have been permanently banned from the Health Products Stewardship Association that helps us remove our sharps from the community. This organization is responsible for safe removal of used sharps and medication from the community. And now I am incurring about a $400 a month out-of-pocket expense to have sharps and medication safely removed from my pharmacy. The mobile unit referenced in tonight's report brings supplies to me every week. However, the demand for the supplies is now exceeding the quantities available, and we are frequently running out of stock, which makes it difficult to build trusting relationships with our clients. The Yellow Umbrella Outreach Program has a phone number, which is a long-distance charge to Windsor, that the clients can use for outreach on Fridays. They have to phone by Wednesday, and they have to know where they're going to be on Friday afternoon for the drop-off. I am not aware of my clients having any success with this arrangement for outreach, and I know we must and will work together for a better solution. No one has a crystal ball with the answers, but we're trying. As a business owner, I have stepped up to the best of my ability to help with this issue by absorbing the cost of training my team with harm reduction best practices, providing space with favorable hours of operation to access the program that includes evenings and weekends, staffing the program, collecting and safely disposing used sharps, and having many conversations with my team members and customers in regards to the stigma that's associated in providing any type of service to people who use drugs. Overall, I'm glad to help in any way that I can and have witnessed how everyone is doing the best they can with what they have to work with.
That's time.
Thank you.
Item 12, consent agenda. Any items to be removed from the consent agenda and placed aside for consideration and debate separately? Councillor B. McGregor.
12A3.
Same. Any others? Can I get a motion to accept all the others? Councillor Latimer? Councillor Kirkwood-White? Any other questions? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Councillor B. McGregor, 12A3.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Just wanted to highlight this report and thank Scott for his deputation and also thank Dylan for all your work in the community. And I think that right at the end there, you had a great quote that's, you said, you're doing the best you can with what you have to work with. And I think that could be the slogan for harm reduction work in Chatham-Kent. So again, thank you for that. I did have a couple of questions for Teresa, a few things to highlight in the report. It was a thorough report, and I think well-timed as we go into some budget discussions and talk about what the municipal contribution can be towards harm reduction in Chatham-Kent. A few things that might be of interest to the public in that report, I think, is what to do if you find a needle. I mean, we get that email once in a while, and it's sometimes confusing for community members to understand what they should be doing if that happens.
Certainly, through you, Mayor Caniff. Thank you for the question, Brock. Councillor McGregor. Certainly, if a member of the public happens to find a needle, the first thing they should do is give a phone call to our customer contact center. The customer contact center will triage those to the phone call to the appropriate department, whether the needle is found on private property or public property, and depending upon whether it's a park or another kind of public property. So that the public member doesn't need to know exactly who to call, they just call the contact center. Thanks.
Perfect. And also it noted in the report that we were giving out some naloxone kits. That number has increased over time. How would an organization or individual go about accessing those types of kits or receiving training on how to use them?
Sure. So through you, Mayor Caniff, individuals who would like to have naloxone kits can certainly come to the WISH Center, a public health unit on 177 King Street East in Chatham, or go to a local pharmacy where they can get naloxone kits and training on how to use them. With respect to community agencies, all public health units across the province have a naloxone distribution program for community organizations who would like to distribute naloxone kits to their clients. So public health units provide training and policy development for their staff, and the organizations sign a contract with public health and have some reporting requirements. Many organizations like CHCs, AIDS organizations, shelters, withdrawal management organizations, Aboriginal health access centers, or outreach organizations can be eligible for this program.
Great, thanks. And one last question, we've discussed this before, it's in the report. Chatham-Kent's a fairly small sample size when it comes to sort of monitoring overdose rates and picking up trends to respond appropriately. So do we monitor those trends regionally? Are we talking other health units or other organizations that track those trends?
Sure. Through you, Mayor Caniff. On a weekly basis, all public health units across the province receive reports from the ministry with respect to overdoses. We share that information with our local community partners, and certainly if there are particular we see increases in overdoses in the community, send out information, specific information to those agencies. Yep.
Great, thank you.
Councillor Crew.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Teresa, it's a really good report. Thank you for putting this together. And we had a pretty healthy discussion around this at our Drug Awareness Council meeting a couple weeks ago. Can you just elaborate a bit on our partnership with AIDS, the AIDS Committee of Windsor?
Sure. Through you, Mayor Caniff. So public health, Chatham-Kent Public Health partners with AIDS Committee Windsor in order to do our needle syringe program. This program is a bit of an outreach, so there's no bricks and mortar here in Chatham-Kent, but we partner with community organizations, certainly like DeLynn and other pharmacies, and the RAM Clinic, the emergency department here at the Health Alliance, in order to distribute needles and supplies to clients, injection drug, who inject drugs.
Okay. And the Yellow Umbrella organization, DeLynn, she kind of outlined some of the challenges around outreach when, people need to call on a certain date at a certain time. They have daily struggles just getting through the day.
Sure.
So how can we make that better?
Yeah. So just a bit of a description of the program. Okay. This is a new program that's expanded into Chatham-Kent with the purchase of a van by AIDS Committee Windsor. It is a mobile program van that distributes supplies once a week, Fridays, 11 to 3. Folks can text or call in order for the van to drop supplies off to them. Certainly we know that in the first 9 months of this year, that van distributed 350,000 supplies, so needles and those supplies that help that support
reduce the harm.
Yeah. And so we expect that come the end of the year, about 466,000 supplies will be distributed by that van. Of the 2.5, of the 2.5 million supplies that are distributed by all of our partners here on an annual basis.
Okay. And, DeLynn touched on the challenges of that business partnership, that they start incurring costs because they become such a frequent flyer with collecting these sharps, which if they weren't doing it, these would be everywhere. And they're already, we hear stories about finding the sharps in our community. Yeah. If there weren't people like DeLynn in our community doing this, my concern is how do we make it better for them?
Sure. Certainly the intent of this program is not to be a financial burden to our partners, so I'll certainly be having a conversation with her in the coming days. We certainly have had some conversation, but more obviously needs to happen. Mm-hmm. And we're working with other community partners with respect to the yellow bins in the community, and have had some initial conversations with waste management here at the municipality about some other creative ways to increase the access to places for people to dispose of these needles appropriately.
Okay. And so I just want to say that, harm reduction is an important pillar in drug strategies. It's just a piece. There's the prevention, the education, the enforcement, the justice part, the treatment, and all of that. So I know that my fellow colleague, Councillor Hall, is going to bring a notice of motion to enhance some things and hopefully we can get on a better path with this and get a better grip on it in our community. Thank you so much for that.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Finn?
Oh.
Councillor Scotchy?
Thank you for the excellent report. I really appreciate this report. I just had a couple quick questions. I guess one mainly. So in reading this, the mobile site, is that pretty much centric to Chatham, like just the city of Chatham now?
We have the van.
Correct.
Goes across
So
in locations all across Chatham-Kent.
Okay, so it does go to the outlying areas
Yes.
and all that as well?
Yes.
And what about a lot of the programs, a lot of the actual sites here that you guys do a lot of your teachings and all that, that stuff though is pretty much centered to Chatham though. I'm just wondering if there's more that we can do in the outlier, areas, because it's, we're all having this issues widespread, right? Because, I've heard it from many people that, we kind of focus this area a little bit more, and I get it's more urbanized in Chatham, but is that a pretty accurate statement that the outlying areas probably require a little bit more assistance in this matter, that we're a little bit behind, so to speak?
So I think we certainly see a significant need in Wallaceburg. We also partner with a couple of other pharmacies, one in Blenheim and McTavish, right, in Dresden, who act as needle syringe programs also. So we continue to look for partners to provide the service across the municipality. And those programs have come on at the beginning of the year. So, we'll continue to look for other opportunities.
Appreciate your hard work in this report and all the detail in it, so thank you very much.
Yep. If I could just echo some of the councillors around the table and acknowledge and recognize our partners in the community, because without them, Chatham-Kent would not be able to serve some of the most stigmatized and vulnerable people in our community. So thank you to our partners.
Councillor B. McGregor, can I get a motion to accept this report?
So moved.
Councillor Crew, can I get a second? Yeah. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item 13, notices of motion. Councillor Hall.
Thank you, Mayor Kenneth. I, Councillor Aaron Hall, hereby provide notice that I will bring forward the following motion at the January 13th, 2020 council meeting for discussion and voting. Whereas needles are used by a wide range of community members, including people with medical conditions and people who use substances, and whereas various municipal departments continue to receive calls regarding reports of found needles, making it difficult to geographically track the calls and target interventions where truly needed, and whereas Chatham-Kent Public Health and its partners continue to face challenges in terms of expanding the needle disposal kiosk initiative, largely due to logistical and financial limitations, and whereas when needles are discarded improperly in a public place, it is often as a result of not having easy access for safe disposal, and whereas businesses partnering with the program are facing challenges with the lack of adequate disposable supplies, putting a burden on their business and organization and their employees. Therefore, be it resolved that administration investigate and provide recommendations to council to improve the needle syringe program in Chatham-Kent. The report will include an analysis and options for improving the following. 1, the distribution model that includes community partner depots and the community outreach program. 2, the bulk purchase of supplies for the program. 3, the Yellow Umbrella mobile outreach service. 4, the education messaging and materials for safe needle disposal. 5, the number of locations where harm reduction supplies can be safely disposed of. 6, options for outdoor needle disposable kiosks. 7, the municipal process for when calls are received regarding needles found out in the community. Furthermore, consultation with AIDS Committee of Windsor, along with other partners across the Chatham-Kent community, including the Chatham-Kent Drug Awareness Council, be included in the making of the report. And furthermore, staff be directed to explore alternative partnerships within Chatham-Kent to provide the program moving forward. And furthermore, this report would be completed in collaboration with the future/pending municipal drug strategy, which is being discussed during the 2020 budget sessions. And furthermore, staff will report back to council by June of 2020.
Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I, Councillor John Wright, hereby provide notice that I will bring forward the following motion at the January 13th, 20 council meeting for discussion for voting. that whereas Chatham-Kent takes its safety of the school children seriously, and whereas the Nye Ridge School is located in a high-traffic area with an arena and a Tim Hortons across the road, be it resolved that administration move with the installation of a pedestrian activity crosswalk in front of the school, similar to the crosswalk in front of the Dresden School.
Item 14, Chief Administrative Office.
14A, 2019 Ontario Volunteer Service Award nominations.
Councillor Hall.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I had a discussion with Ms. Wilcox about this report, and I saw in the report that there was only five nominations, I guess, only from one department, and that caught me off guard. I guess I thought there might have been more. So I had a discussion with Ms. Wilcox, and she said that if we did push this report to our January 13th meeting, there would be adequate time to meet the deadline to send it to the ministry. So I'd like to move that just to give all the departments within Chatham-Kent a little bit extra time, just in case. I don't want any of the volunteers that might be eligible for this recognition to fall through the cracks. So I move that we defer this to January.
Councillor Scacchi.
Be happy to second that.
Any questions related to that motion? Seeing none, we'll put that to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes 15-0.
Item 15, Finance, Budget, and Information Technology Services.
15A, offer to purchase 55 Minnie Street, Wallaceburg.
Councillor C. McGregor.
I would be pleased to move the recommendation as presented.
Councillor Hall.
I'll please to second that.
Any questions? Seeing none, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes 15-0.
Item 16, Infrastructure and Engineering Services.
16A, asset divestment timelines.
Councillor Harrigan.
I have an alternate motion to put forward. So I, Councillor Harrigan, move that staff work on a divestment and rationalization decision support matrix for one asset area at a time, working within their existing resources, and that staff begin this work with a focused pilot in the asset category of parks and buildings, specifically in the community of Wallaceburg, and to return to council with a report on the initiative sometime within the 2020 calendar year for discussion and lessons learned on the process. And in the interim, the approved council direction regarding asset divestment be maintained.
Can I get a seconder for that? Councillor Hall.
Thank you.
Councillor Harrigan.
So first I want to thank the engineering department for the work that they had done in order to capture for council the assets that we have. I think the report that was provided gave us all a really good snapshot of what it is that we're maintaining and working with as a community. That being said, I've had some good conversation with engineering around what the intent of my original motion was and some of the information that's come in this report and some of the work that still needs to be done. Mainly in that the motion that I put forward really wasn't a movement to divest more or to create those final divestment lists, but rather to push engineering towards more of a wholesome approach to divestment and looking at the rationalization of our assets. So I think that what I've proposed on the table does two things. One, it suggests a pilot of a specific area that from previous conversations at Council and certainly from the motion that Councillor Hall had put forward, puts engineering kind of to put their work in an area that benefits the community and that is in alignment with the work that's being done in one particular community, and then also allows us to see what the actual resources are to do those asset evaluations. So in the report, there were some estimates around, 3 days per building or 2 days per park or things like that. And this allows engineering to evaluate if those resources are actually needed. You'll note that the motion suggests that engineering work within their existing resources to do so. And Thomas and I have been able to have some conversations about what that would mean. But the clear message is that we can't right now go out to to RFP to bring in more work, to put work into the divestment of our assets. And then the last clause was just me wanting to make sure that the conversations that we had in October don't go to the wayside. So some of the discussions around, for example, defining what does rationalization or right sizing mean to staff, and how do we connect some of our council priorities to that, I think still need to take place. A question that I do have, and John may not be here actually because he may be also the best person to answer it, is, but Thomas, certainly maybe you may have some insight, is I know as a council we are planning a strategy session on growth. And I think it's very important that council and staff have conversations about what growth means and what growth means in terms of what current assets are available. So have there been discussions for those conversations to take place in January when we're talking growth? And if not, I'd like to just suggest that we think about having that conversation at that time. Sorry, John, you walked in on the last. Yeah.
Did you want to repeat the question?
Yes, certainly. So,
Mr. Norton?
Yeah. So the quick question is, in the conversations that we're planning in January around growth, is there an opportunity for us to discuss what that means for our assets and our divestment and rationalization and the strategic direction around growth in terms of growth versus engineering and maintenance? And if that's not currently on the agenda, I'd like to recommend that it be put on the agenda for that discussion.
I think I understand your question, Councillor. So, Mr. Mayor, I think, first of all, Councillor, Mr. Mayor, are we referring to the growth session that we're planning at the beginning of January now that we just announced?
Yes.
So, yes, our goal that evening is to spend an evening talking about growth and to have you tell us, to work maybe in small groups or however, and to tell us what it is you want growth to be in our community. And certainly I think growth has to work alongside what you've proposed up here with divestment or rationalization of assets. So certainly all this starts to come together. And I agree that we can't have the two separated. We have to talk about them together. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Councillor Pinsonneau?
Thank you, Your Worship. Well, I definitely think a pilot project is better than the original motion. That was a massive amount of money. And I get that we need a third party to look at it. But in the same token, it seems like we spend all this money on studies and consultants and then we put it on a shelf. Because honestly, been around here a long time, there's no political will to close buildings. And so at least if we're going to do a pilot project here, we can, before we spend a ton of money, we can go down the path of whether we really want to close things or not. Anyway, just my opinion.
Councillor B. McGregor?
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Just a little bit of clarification. So the approved council direction regarding asset divestment be maintained. I think I just want to know from maybe from your perspective, Thomas, what that means to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If you look in the report on page 2, we've recited what the original motion was, and about halfway down it states that no divestment of any asset be brought to council until the information requested is received. So it is my understanding that therefore we would not spend any additional time on a divestment strategy. We would bring nothing forward to council.
Okay. One of the things I'm interested in looking at the report, looking at this motion, is the work that's already been done. So I know, we've had this, and my mind goes to bridges. Maybe I sat beside Brian Fluker too long, but we had a list of a divestment list for bridges, and there was a way that list was arrived at. So I'm wondering, I assume there's some work out there that involved matrices that talked about how we ranked importance, how we looked at life cycle, and I think that would be something that would be helpful to see what work has already been done, to understand how we're rationalizing some of these decisions, to understand what we don't have to redo because we've already done maybe, or if this council agrees with the direction of previous councils with respect to how we value different assets. So I think that it's hard to look at this report in isolation and not think about the next report as well, and further to think about that as more of a budget issue, to say, if we're not serious about these past divestment decisions, we have to change how we think about budget as well. So these aren't one-time, we'll look at them as one-time expenses, but they're not. This is functionally a year-over-year underspend that we have if we're choosing not to divest anything. So I think that needs to be a budget conversation, and to have that conversation, I think we need to understand the work that's already been done and wrap our arms around that a little bit more. So that's outside the scope, certainly, of this motion, but something I think we need to think about when we move into budget, or we're going to keep dealing with these same issues over and over and over again.
Any other questions? If not, we'll put this motion to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes 17-0. 16B, request for proposal award, RFP R19-393, consulting engineering services for the replacement of the McDougall Line Bridge over Government Drain Number 1, community of Tilbury East.
Councillor Harrigan?
I'll move the recommendation.
Councillor Ogier?
I'll second that.
Any questions? Councillor Ogier?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Thomas or Chris. So we're looking at a minimum $2 million, give or take 165,000. So if we're looking at a minimum $2 million, and the realignment was going to be 500,000, if I'm not mistaken, that you spoke about earlier, or that Harry spoke about earlier. That doesn't include the turnaround. If I'm not mistaken, that was over. We were talking about $800,000, if I'm not mistaken, when this was brought up last time. Is that not correct?
Thank you, Mayor Camp. So the estimate that for the bridge itself, for the replacement of the McDougall Line Bridge, is approximately $2 million. That's the construction estimate that was provided.
Correct.
The estimate to improve the intersection of McDougall and Queens Line is an additional $500,000, and as well as the estimate for that turnaround bulb was $300,000. That's kind of where that $800,000 came from the last time that we spoke about this. $800,000 was a combination of improving the intersection and putting in the bulb on McDougall Line should we divest McDougall Line Bridge.
And that includes engineering as well?
Correct. So just to I guess, bring it forward to council here, ultimately the total construction, including engineering cost for this project, which includes the intersection improvements as recommended by engineering and the bridge replacement on McDougall Line and the supporting consulting engineering fees, which are being recommended in this report, amount to about $2,637,000. That's detailed on page 5.
$2,637,000?
Yes.
That's, sorry, how did you, can you say that again?
So the recommendations are to move forward with a estimated construction cost of $2 million for the replacement of the bridge. That's construction cost for the bridge. The estimated cost to improve the intersection of Queens Line and McDougall Line, that's $500,000. So that brings it to 25, and then the increase for the engineering effort pertaining to all that brings it to $2.6 million.
Through you, Your Worship. Chris, is it, when you say the improvements to Queens Line and McDougall Line, is that lights, left-hand turn lane, roundabout?
No. So we evaluated the intersection, the current intersection of McDougall Line and Queens Line. We modeled it for transportation, like basically trucks, semi-trucks, and delivery trucks and farm equipment. And we acknowledge that the turning movements aren't sufficient. They're not adequate. They're not safe for going from McDougall Line to Queens Line. So when we are proceeding with complete removal and reconstruction of this bridge, there will be an extended time period. It's quite a lengthy construction period that the Queens Line and McDougall Line intersection will be heavily utilized while that bridge is out of commission. So therefore, the recommendation to improve that intersection, $500,000 is an estimate for construction, will help with the turning movement going left and right from McDougall Line onto Queens Line. It's going to basically realign and intersect Queens Line in a perfect T rather than at the angle that it's currently at.
So, because we're buying property, I'm assuming?
Actually, the property that we will be realigning it to is all currently owned by the municipality.
Okay.
So no property, is just all earthworks. construction.
Sorry. Oh, okay, at the corner, correct. And we'll have a radius to be able to turn left on that.
That's correct. So the new radius of McDougall line, where it's going to tee into Queens line, I'm sorry I don't have an illustration of this, but it's going to have a much wider flare and approaches on McDougall line to accommodate the wider turning radiuses of both farm and transportation traffic.
So a school bus would be able to turn there?
Of course, yes. They're well within that limit.
Okay, and sorry, asking you some questions. There's a drain there that runs right through that property as well.
So the municipal drain is a little bit further up the road on McDougall line. So basically where that bridge is currently at, where that municipal drain's at, is where we're going to start to taper McDougall line and tee it into Queens line. So there'll be no impact to that structure or the municipal drain.
Okay, that still seems like a pretty sharp corner, even if we do this with I don't know how long a school bus is, but it's obviously long and doesn't turn like a semi or anything. So, but if you think we can do it, I'll trust you because I'm not an engineer and you are. Thank you.
Councillor B. McGregor.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Outside of the engineering cost, that total construction cost, where do we fund that through? So do we move that money from another life cycle budget, from another asset category? Where do we come up with that?
Thank you, Mayor. So that's one of the challenges of this particular bridge was on our divestment list. That was a list of 25 bridges that we developed back in 2012. And council approved additional funding for bridges. And as a result of that, we've been able to reduce that list from 25 to now 7. McDougall Line Bridge used to be on that list. So essentially, our challenge is, where is the money going to come from to fund this? So the options are for council is to give us additional funding on the bridges. We could redistribute some of the assets funded right now and put more toward bridges. We could also, on some of our other bridges, we could put closure or load rate them and try to stretch that out further. Right now, just to remind council, these are bridges greater than 3 meters. We're 85% funded. For bridges less than 3 meters, we're only 17% funded. So right now, the total shortfall on greater than 3 meters is about $2.5 million, $3.5 million for less than 3 meters, for a total of $6 million. So that's the amount of shortfall we have in the budget. So that's the question. And overall, all our assets, as you know, we're only funded 50%. So
is that $6 million per year?
That's
budget
per year,
impact
that's
if we
right.
didn't want to divest any bridges above or below 3 meters? So all the bridge.
That's correct.
Asset
It
categories.
would be $6 million per year would get us to a fully funded state for all of our bridges in Chatham-Kent, and that equates to a 4% tax increase.
Thank you.
I just had a quick question. Earlier it was mentioned about just making it a no left turn. What would the savings be to this? I mean, you have to look at the intersection. A lot of the changes you're making are to allow for a safer left-hand turn from there. What would be the cost savings on an intersection if you just put no left-hand turn?
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. So it wouldn't be recommended to eliminate the left-hand turn lane, only because with the bridge completely out of commission for the duration of construction, it would not allow agricultural, like the detour route associated with making a right out only and going all the way around to ultimately go west or eastbound would be quite an inconvenience. To eliminate the left-hand turn completely, if that is a direction that council wants to go, then there would be no modifications at all to the intersection that's currently there, and it would be very minor that would be required. But really, the modifications are just to accommodate a safer left-hand turn movement more than anything.
So how much would that be in as far as the savings go? Like you mentioned, 500. Is it 500,000? Is it more? Is it? Can you give us an idea?
I would anticipate It probably just to improve the current intersection, because there is some concerns with just even the current alignment right now. Maybe only about 100,000 worth at most, just to accommodate right traffic out. But that would be very challenging to enforce as well. There will still be a lot of people wanting to make that left-hand turn, which has led to some traffic problems at that intersection historically as well.
So we'd save $400,000. That's what we're spending to allow vehicles to turn left. And if we didn't have that issue, I mean, you're saying you're not recommending because of the issue that it's going to be out for a year or two, the bridge, so it'll be certainly a big inconvenience for people not be able to turn left there and have to go around for that year or two.
Yes, we're anticipating for this project a construction duration of about 8 to 10 months. So that 8 to 10 month period.
Okay, so it's less than a year that people will be able to do that, and it's costing $400,000.
Truthfully, the current structure right now, as I did mention at the last meeting, it is currently very heavily load posted. It's a very dangerous structure. So already, agricultural equipment, heavy farm equipment, heavy vehicles should be using that intersection, and that's why we're recognizing that intersection needs that form of improvement. So even right now, like that intersection needs to get improved to accommodate that left turn movement there.
So if there was no downtime with that, would you still be suggesting that you need to put a left-hand turn capabilities there?
If the structure was sufficient, was adequate, we would look at some other alternatives to restrict left turn movement, utilizing, of course, that structure over the government drain number 1.
The reason I'm going through this discussion is we are really tied up with capital needs, and $400,000 we could do a lot elsewhere. So if that was the only inconvenience for 10 months requiring somebody to turn right, and then we just put up something, a no left-hand turn lane, we could save $400,000. I think that's something we should be looking at, but I'll leave that to over here. Okay, Councillor Latimer.
Thank you, through the Mayor. Chris, I've got a couple of questions. Again, right that the capital availability is minimal. So I had a question put to me this weekend. What about a Bailey Bridge? I don't know if anyone listening knows what a Bailey Bridge is. I know, I see your eye rolling. And I know I'm not an engineer, but I do need you to explain to everyone listening what the difference is between the Bailey Bridge and what the innovative design you're using. Because the Bailey is a prefab timber and steel, correct? Truss bridge.
Thank you, Mayor Camp. That is how I understand what that structure is too, but I am not 100% familiar with many more details rather than just that. Off the top of my head.
Could I suggest that just because that is being seen as an interim measure, just something to have in our back pocket too, if we have a major fail. These are bridges that were used back in World War II. That was where they were developed to be used. Heavy equipment, vehicle, and I understand that it's timber. Right, and I don't know what the lifespan is of it, but it certainly, I think, would be cheaper than maybe even the innovative design you have here. It's prefab. The other issue is I do, again, want to know if you were using this innovative design, but it was a design build, what would be the difference in cost? Or would there be any? And that, again, is for those listening.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Camp. So to answer your first question, the process that we actually went through for this project, we've never done this before. We went out for an RFP, request for proposal, where we actually asked the consultants to do a lot of work for free, essentially. Like, they provided us with 3 different recommendations, 3 different proposals, very technically broken down for our engineering team to evaluate and review. And at the end of the day, all of these consultants, they all basically put these options on the table, trying to find the most cost-efficient means possible to solve this problem, to come up with a solution for this bridge replacement. None of the recommendations from any of the 5 consultants were that option. So therefore, they made these recommendations, and these are recommendations at the end of the day that these professional engineers, these professional consulting firms need to stand by. They did the homework, they did the assessment. And ultimately, I think we just need to, ensure that the proposal that they're putting forward for the 75-year life expectancy, the costs and not just the cost of construction, but the cost of maintenance as well, and everything that they're saving for us with eliminating the center pier and eliminating the hazards within the municipal drain and whatnot, and all these things that they considered, that they are making the best decision possible.
I appreciate that, but in every case, those engineers are also wanting to make the most of the opportunity to make money for their organization. And these alternatives that are being talked about and raised to us on an ongoing basis do not provide the same amount of remuneration to those engineering funds as what we classically do. I'm not saying that the Bailey Bridge or the design build is better than this, because I don't have that expertise. I'm just asking that you acknowledge you don't know anything about the Bailey Bridge, and not a whole lot anyway. So nothing, but can you just, for the listeners' benefit, I think they just need to know the rationalization behind not considering these two alternatives, especially viewing that we have limited funds. And so that's just what I'm asking. So I'll leave it at that.
Councillor Harrigan.
Thank you. I just have a quick question. Given all the conversation, I just want to clarify that in the recommendation, the consultant is for doing the the engineering of the bridge over McDougall, and the potential modifications to McDougall line that are addressed in this report because it's related, but those would be discussed at a capital planning process. That's not connected to this. Like, this RFP recommendation is specific to the bridge, even though there's some information about the other intersection in that report.
Thank you, Mayor Camp. So the other intersection, are you referring to Merlin and Queens Line?
McDougall and Merlin Town Line.
No, so the McDougall and Merlin Town Line, which is the other end of this road,
yes,
is actually part of this recommendation, part of this report. That's the $500,000 to make that improvement, to accommodate that intersection for the left turn movements as we discussed while the bridge is down.
Okay, I guess my question is, so the RFP for the consulting engineering services, what is that RFP for?
The RFP that we put out was not just for the bridge itself, but it's also to improve the intersection. But that was on how we structured that RFP was provisional. So basically, the full instruction, should council approve, is to move forward with the replacement of the McDougall Line Bridge, as per the recommendations in this report, as well as the modifications to the intersection of Queens Line and McDougall Line. Should council not want to proceed with the improvements to Queens Line to McDougall Line, that was a provisional item that we can then hold back, and the consultant won't spend any time and effort on that part.
Right. Was there cost savings in having a engineering firm look at kind of like the road as a whole, rather than separating it to be a bridge versus a capital plan for the other intersection? Like, I'm just wondering why it was put forward together as one large project, where typically we would say replace the culvert or replace the bridge, and then a couple kilometers down the road fix the intersection as two unique items. But
the recommendations to improve the intersection were noted as a result of there's been a lot of traffic congestion, traffic problems at that intersection throughout the years. It was also noted in the 2012 report, I believe, that intersection improvement needed to kind of go hand in hand with the bridge. And then just recognizing it was a decision that ultimately engineering made, which was supported through all the consultants, that if we're taking that bridge out of place for construction, that intersection needs to be improved for safety.
okay. So then the way forward would start with intersection for safety, then bridge repairs or replacement.
That's correct.
In terms of the timeline.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Very happy to support this. We had quite the extensive conversation and extensive deputations back in September. Some of those deputation providers are here tonight, so thank you for coming out. Just look forward to council's support on this one.
Councillor Sakachi.
Mr. Tiber, one really quick question that's very important to me. One of the main reasons why I supported this at the time was because of the dangers that were presented in the deputations to Queens Line and Merlin's Town Line. So here's my fear. My fear from a logical perspective is if we proceed with this, so you guys were very very good in your assumptions on how much it would cost. So if it becomes at, like, say, $3 million, because you're saying it's 2.67-ish, plus we're going to add this $150,000, sorry, it's not, 137,000 in there as well, right? So there's going to be a cost that's occurring. Is it already in there already?
Thank you, Rick. That's part of it.
Perfect.
Yes.
Okay. Regardless, if we do this capital expense, what is going to be the impact of doing that, the intersection of Queens Line and Merlin Town Line? That is something that every single one of these councillors around this horseshoe said gets calls on frequently. I can tell you that I've had several calls from people on Riverview Line very concerned that if this project goes through, that is going to impact that major work there. So I guess for myself is I completely understand the safety when it comes to the agriculture aspect. That's why I supported it initially, because of the danger, the extra danger it's going to present to Merlin's, so that intersection we're discussing. My fear is if this is supported, is that major project then going to be shelved? Can you answer that?
Yes, so thank you, Mayor Kenneth. No, I can confidently say that the intersection of Merlin and Queens Line is completely separate and independent of whatever we do, whether we move forward or we don't move forward with the intersection of McDougall and Merlin with the bridge replacement. That intersection is being recognized as a capital project. It's going to be presented again to Council on the 13th. It's recognized as a priority project and it's warranted as a result of the increase in traffic as well as the traffic collision records at that intersection to do some form of improvement, irregardless of any action on McDougall Line.
See, I think that if we were discussing those aspects prior to the bridge conversation, I think we might have had a different conversation altogether. So it's unfortunate it's kind of coming after. I'm not saying that's anybody's. It's just that when we're talking about safety, that's very important. And I think it kind of presented itself, in one of those situations where we had to support it from a safety standpoint. I think if we would have looked at everything as a whole going back, I understand it was from a divestment aspect. It's just that it's a very, it's a very difficult situation right now because I'm concerned this is going to be like this is just an estimate, and I'm concerned it comes back at 3.2 or 3 which is very possible. And then what's going to, what are we going to do? That's half of our capital expenditure on one project. So I'm somewhat concerned, but I have supported it prior.
Councillor Oche.
Sorry, thank you, Your Worship. Chris, just one last question. If we don't do the bridge, it's going to be $800,000. Approximately.
Thank you, Mayor Kenneth. So as detailed on page 5, if we proceed with not doing the bridge, it's going to be still the intersection improvements to Queens Line and McDougall Line, which is $500,000, as well as we do need to remove that existing structure and reestablish the drain banks because it is a risk. If that bridge falls into the drain and causes an obstruction, it's just going to be catastrophic. So our recommendation will be to do a complete removal and then salvaging and naturalization of the open drain. So that's approximately $400,000. Again, these are all construction estimates based on recent tenders. And then the installation of a turnaround bulb on McDougall Line is approximately $300,000. And that's just to acknowledge it's now going to be a dead end road and to still provide access to all the residents and all the agricultural properties on McDougall Line.
Okay, so approximately $1.2 million.
That's correct.
And the bridge is going to be approximately, without a left-hand turn, if we didn't put that in, would be approximately $2.2 million?
Approximately, that's correct. Including the engineering, so $2 million, approximately $100,000-ish for just to upgrade the current intersection in its current place. With the engineering, you're looking at just over $2.2 million.
So the bridge would actually, if we didn't do that and we put a bridge in, the bridge is actually $1 million.
Right. So yeah, sorry, just for clarification, the comparison, not including that left-hand turn or any modifications to McDougall Line at Queens Line, that would come off even off of that 1.2 as well. So that would therefore be 1.8 million we're down to approximately, or no, sorry, 800,000 compared to 700,000 compared to the bridge costs of 2 point.
But if you're going to close that bridge, you have to do that left-hand turn, so you're got to add that back in.
Right. And then you have to add that into the bridge costs as well to bring you back up to that 2.6. So if you subtract it from the one option with doing the bridge or the one option without doing the bridge, you have to. Well,
not if we put something through saying we don't want a left-hand turn while we fix the bridge.
Correct. I'm just saying so if we do not acknowledge the left-hand turn lane on a left turn movement onto Queens Line, the construction of the approximate engineering for the bridge, construction including engineering, is going to be about $2.2 million. Also, if we do not put in a new bridge and we do not allow the left turn movement with no bridge there, then that estimate is going to be about 700,000 compared to the 1.2.
Right, but if the only reason I wouldn't put the left-hand turn lane in right now is because if we're replacing the bridge. But for safety reasons afterwards, if we're not going to put a bridge in, then I would definitely want the left-hand turn lane there. So for 10 months, we can probably make it driving around opposite a little farther. But we did it with the Merlin Town Line when that bridge was out for a year, just about. When we had, when we had that problem just down the road from there with something with the girder being cut too short or something, and the bridge was out for the whole winter and pretty well all summer as well. So the price could be about $1 million to put that bridge in on the savings of not putting in a left-hand turn and not doing a roundabout and taking the bridge out, the old bridge. Right. So it would come to approximately $1 million because of the savings that you would get from the others.
Thank you, Mayor Cam. So approximately $1 million savings. I am following you, but there, one thing that I forgot to acknowledge or just reference as well as of course, the life cycle and maintenance savings not going with the new bridge. So the repair, the maintenance, the approximately half its life to do a rehab of the structure, that has to get factored into this equation as well, which is approximately 75,000.
At approximately 35 years?
Approximately the 35 to 37 year mark, correct.
Thank you.
Simple, sorry. 75,000 per year.
Okay, any other questions? I said one more clarification. So if we approve this, are we approving a left-hand turn lane, or will there be a capital budget that comes back, says, here's the bridge cost, here's the cost to turn right, and then here's the cost to turn left, and have there 3 separate decisions, i.e. we can decide as a council, we prioritize, there's a lot of things demanding capital right now. We have a lot of intersections now that there's no left turn because of safety. And I'm just looking, if it's because of that, and we can save 400 and put it towards a lot of other things we need in the community, I just want to know that we have that option at some capital budget point to say, no, that's not a priority at this time.
Thank you, Mayor. So just to be clear, so this amount of money we're authorizing to the consulting firm is to design the bridge and that left turn as well. So if that's not desired, you should tell us that now, because otherwise we will go forward with that design and then we will take it out to tender. And then when the tender comes back, we'll be bringing that back to this table and say, do you wish to approve it? But it's already been tendered, so it's too late. So we're asking you make that decision tonight, whether you want us to design the left turn lane or not.
So effectively, by allowing this to go through and saying we want a left-hand turn, it's a given, and we're committing the capital effectively to do that. So
I move the recommendation.
Okay.
It's already, yeah.
But yeah, we haven't voted on it yet. That's why I was just, okay, if council's, all right. I will, if no other questions, we'll put it to vote.
Sorry, just had the suspense. I froze for a second. All votes are in. Motion passes 11-6. 16C, CK Transit Fleet Ownership.
Councillor Kirkwood-White.
I'll move the recommendation.
Councillor Finn.
Happy to second.
Any questions? Councillor Pinsino.
Thank you, Worship. I honestly think we should stay away from purchasing and maintaining the public transit vehicles. 1998, it was turned over to the private sector, and I think at the time that was the right idea. We as a municipality, I think, should stay out of the private sector business. And I can tell you, if the gas tax ever dries up or we're able to use it for infrastructure and other things, you're going to see a serious reduction in the transit vehicles. I just think we need to leave this to private enterprise and just stay out of it.
Seeing no other questions, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes 11-5.
Item 17, Community Development.
17A, proposed sale of WDC Rail to 2719545 Ontario Inc.
Councillor Foss.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll move the recommendation.
Councillor Solomon.
Thank you, Worship. Since I brought this forward a couple weeks ago, I'm pleased to second the motion.
Any questions? Seeing none, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes 16-0. 17B, winter sidewalk and highway maintenance.
Councillor Harrigan.
Sorry, before I move the recommendation, I understood there was potentially going to be a modification. Oh, here we go. Perfect. There it is. Now, happy to move the recommendation.
Seconded by Councillor Oche. Any questions? Seeing none, we'll put it to vote.
Councillor Oche. All votes are in. Motion passes 14-2. 17C, Opportunity Villages Community Land Trust. And I understand Mr. Norton has a presentation.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for this opportunity to speak to you in council. Last week, a presentation was made to council addressing the population and other projections for this community for the next 25 years. Council at that time directed administration to work on strategies to encourage and facilitate growth. That was part of your motion that you passed last week, to work on strategies to encourage and facilitate growth. We in administration have been trying to identify what are the various strategies that will facilitate growth, and one of the largest areas of required investment is in housing. We have a housing deficit in our community. As well, Council's term of priorities for 2018 to 2022, approved by this Council in July, included several items, several bullet points that relate to housing. We talk in there, or Council in there talks about growing the population, expanding infrastructure for growth. And in order to attract and increase our population, we need to have homes for those people to live in. We talked about promoting growth while protecting the environment. So we want to build homes that are environmentally efficient. Community wellness, where everyone is able to be safe and to thrive. So we need a wide variety of affordable housing options to meet needs. And finally, community engagement to build collaborative partnerships to advance the vision of Chatham-Kent. So all of those, I believe, are council's directions to administration to focus on growth and focus, in this particular instance, on housing. So I'm very excited tonight to come to you with a project that I believe is a first of its kind in Chatham-Kent, at least in many, many years, and also something which we as an administration can get behind because we believe it's going to bring some affordable home ownership to Chatham-Kent. So why is this housing needed? Because there's a shortage of housing in Chatham-Kent, because there's a shortage of below average price houses for ownership. That's important. Below average price houses. And this project will enable those on lower incomes to more easily gain access to home ownership from the rental market. We know that often people get into rental units and then they have trouble making that jump and leap up into owning a home. And it's especially difficult, as was described earlier by the individual that made the deputation, because of that high barrier. You need a lot of savings built up in order to get into home ownership, especially with the cost of housing going up. So here is a housing continuum. You see on the left-hand side everything from homelessness and emergency shelters right across to my colleagues' areas who focus on social housing and affordable rental housing, which is something often supported by the provincial government through provincial dollars. But that leap again to go from the affordable rental housing or even market rental housing up into the far right market home ownership is very difficult. And so we have something here that is not affordable rental housing, but we have something here that is, in a sense, affordable home ownership. It kind of meets that gap in the middle. So what is this project? The Opportunity Villages Land Trust is a nonprofit corporation. They're currently in progress of getting their not-for-profit status. They're a volunteer board of directors who are giving of their time. They have come to administration and explained this to us. They are developing a small home community offering housing ownership rather than something which people can just invest in and flip for a profit. So what they're building are smaller, energy-efficient homes. They want to protect those homes against speculators driving up prices. You can see there the home sizes. You can see the target selling prices are well below average home prices in Chatham-Kent. They've secured a site in Chatham, and they have the plan to build about 30 homes. There is a plan of their proposed project, which is still in a very preliminary stages. So how are we going to manage this? This still has to go through planning, approvals, and all of that. So this will come to council again in the future, but at this stage, what we're proposing is to enter into an agreement to be put in place with the board of the land trust. We're proposing to provide them the cash equivalent approximately of their building permit fees, planning fees, and PUC development charges. That will be in and out. We would also propose to provide a $200,000 grant towards construction. And if I can just compare that to affordable housing dollars that the province gives us, they often provide about $100,000 or $110,000 per unit. So if you're talking about 10 units, you're looking at well over $1 million. In this instance, we're being asked to give about $200,000, and they will build about 30 units. So for upfront construction costs, it's really a good deal. However, we're also we're proposing to offer them a grant equivalent to the increase in property taxes for 10 years. Now, we don't normally provide that yet for affordable rental housing, although we are currently in the process of looking and reviewing our CIP program, our community improvement plans, and intend in the new year as part of our growth strategy to bring forward amendments to CIPs which will provide for property tax relief for this period of time for certain affordable housing projects. In order to ensure that the project isn't delayed in its construction, because I know there's a current project happening in Chatham-Kent that has taken years and years and years to finish, we're proposing that the 10 years starts when they take ownership of the lands, not when they finish or complete their construction. So that will start the time ticking more quickly. And they will also encourage them to build quickly. So we're also going to expect in this agreement with them that they will perform all due diligence and good governance by their board of the land trust. That will be required, and we will monitor and follow up with them. We will also have them report back to the municipality, including the CFO and myself and the CAO, with respect to the use of their funds. We'll see their business case and ensure their legal status. We've also indicated that they would not be eligible for other municipal grants for this particular project for a period of 10 years. So that is the presentation, and would ask you to support it, please.
Councillor Kirkwood-White.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to move the recommendation, and then I have a few comments I'd like to
Okay.
make.
Councillor Latimer.
Pleased to second that.
Okay. Councillor Kirkwood-White, floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I think most of the councillors around the table know that I've been working probably for the last 3 or 4 years with a group of folks in Chatham-Kent around what started to be a tiny home community, but that evolved over the last year, and particularly in the last 9 months. I believe this report is a real group effort. It sets a wonderful example for other reports that have been developed in consultation with municipal staff. And I want to express my thanks to John Norton and to April Redyke and to Bruce and Ryan in the planning department, who actually helped the group identify an appropriate piece of property for this particular development probably 5 or 6 months ago. There are numerous members of the community who have been meeting over the last 9 months fairly actively, some of whom are in the audience tonight, and I want to thank them for their patience in waiting for this item to come up on the agenda. So if you'll give me a moment, I'd like to introduce Steve Pratt. You've already met Rose Linsman, who did the deputation. Chris Arnold is over there, and Barb DeForno, and Ron Mail from Thames Valley Construction at the back. So we have 2 builders in the room that are helping with this project as well. As John said, this is the first of its kind affordable home ownership project in Chatham-Kent, and we hope will serve as a model for similar projects in other communities throughout Chatham-Kent. For example, the group has already identified through the Watson report that there are properties in Wallaceburg and perhaps Wheatley that could be set aside for a similar initiative if the will is there. The reason why we're coming to council tonight is because time is of the essence in this matter, as there are deadlines to be met in the purchase of the property, and this investment on the part of the municipality will in fact help to leverage funds that are being sought from other funders and investors, and I'm hoping that I can receive the support of council for this initiative.
Councillor Crew.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I'd just like to say I'm going to support this. I think it's a great initiative. When I was reading it, I was thinking about the community improvement plan. I thought this is similar, but it's for people and it's housing, and what a great thing to do. And I think when John said it was a housing deficit, it's a housing crisis right now. And moving people because people are talking about their young family members and they can't afford a home. They may never be able to afford a home. This may help get them out of, just like you said, out of the rental and into this. And I like the thinking out of the box. It removes barriers, and that's what we have to do to make things happen. We have to think differently and act differently. So thank you for doing this, everyone that's been involved. I know Karen's been pretty excited about it.
Councillor Pinsino.
Oh, thank you, Worship. I think there's no question that it is needed, and happy to see that the builders are getting on board. I guess through you, Your Worship, to John, as long as this is a grant, it can't ever be seen as bonusing or anything for the taxes?
Mr. Mayor, it's not bonusing because it's a not-for-profit group, so we're allowed to grant money like we have to the YMCA or the hospice or any other not-for-profit group, and we will ensure that they get their not-for-profit status and comply with all requirements before giving them any money.
And the school taxes, they are responsible for them, correct? That's what the report reads?
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. In fact, they're responsible for paying all their taxes. What you're approving is that you'll grant back the municipal part of the taxes for a 10-year period.
And I'm assuming the grant doesn't get paid till after construction gets rolling, just to make sure the project is on the go?
Mr. Mayor, the group has asked for the funds up front. So short of them, so what we would include in the agreement is just that they provide proof that they're a not-for-profit corporation. I'm looking to see that they've got somewhat of a business plan in place, and I'll work with Gord on that to review that. We want to see how they're going to sell these. We're going to walk through sort of making sure that they've got everything set in place with their lawyers and accountants. But then we were going to issue them the funds before construction because they need the funds, as Councillor said, to leverage other funding.
But you're going to do your due diligence to make sure that you have a comfort level that things are rolling? All right, I think we need to promote growth, and I think this is a good way to do it.
Councillor Scotchy.
Very supportive of affordable housing, to say the least. Just one quick question, Mr. Norton, in regards to the legality of, for instance, the turnover. Are we able to put very strong language in there to ensure that they're not bought and resold at a larger value continuously? I know that I did read the report, but I just want to make sure from a legal standpoint, once they're in somebody else's hands, is that something that we can keep, very, tight to wording in regards to any kind of flipping, so to speak?
So there are such projects or land trusts already in Canada. This is very common in the United Kingdom. A lot of people live in land trust lands. In Canada, it's less common, but it is happening here. And what I'm waiting for is this group to provide to us, I guess, the legal documents that their lawyer is preparing. So we would expect their lawyer to prepare all of those documents and provide them to us to show us exactly how this is going to work. But at a high level, the idea is that the land trust will own the land. The individual unit owners will buy and own their building, and they will only have the right to sell it to someone else at a fixed increase in price, maybe 1% a year or whatever they decide, so that if the market gets ahead of that and grows faster, when an individual does go to sell, they'll get the equity that they've invested into it over the years through paying principal on their mortgage as well. They will get a small increase, but they won't get a very large increase. So it's not going to be the best place to grow a long-term investment, but the trade-off is that the new buyers will have it at a more affordable price.
And you own it instead of just paying rent or trying to afford a house that maybe at the time you can't afford. I just wanted to make sure there was that language in regards to it being strong, that it's not going to become something that's going to end up being profitable for people. I really appreciate the concept, and I'm happy to support it under that direction. Thank you.
Councillor Latimer.
Thank you for your worship. I too am in full support of this endeavor. What it does is enables the professionals, the young professionals, and other gainfully employed individuals to have an opportunity to acquire and grow financial equity. And we don't have that opportunity right now. It's brand new in Chatham-Kent and in Canada, as John just said, or very minimally known about. So I too think this will be a model project for similar affordable home ownership projects in the future. As I say, kudos to all involved in this. A lot of hard work, and that's been done, but also to be done in a short period of time. Thank you.
I just had a couple comments as well. I mean, going to Councillor Cruz's comment about this, we're in a crisis, we are. And when we look around, that it provides long-term affordability for homes. And with what the limits they're putting on it, it's somebody that's not going to come in and look to big return on profit, but it's going to return on investment, but it's going to provide affordable housing. Also, I like it becomes a model. And as we talked about, you were looking at Wheatley, Wallaceburg, and everywhere, all throughout Chatham-Kent, this is a model we can do. If we were able to subsidize, that's what we're effectively doing, $7,000 per house. If we could do much more of these, we start going a long way to meeting what we require. And that target range is going to bring in the young families that are looking for gainful employment, and we need people for that as well. So it's a really good solution. I'm looking at this as an investment in our community, not a cost. This is an investment, because when we start attracting people like that into our community, more people into the community to afford a house, we're creating more workers, etc. So it's a real investment. And Councillor Kirkwood-White for final say.
Just the last word. One of the members of our group came up with a wonderful slogan for this particular project. Live and go. Don't flip and go.
All right, on that note, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes 17-0. Sure.
All right, well, we delayed the recognition of Mr. Crawford till now because I think we wanted to make him sit through his last council meeting here, and we tried to keep it as long as possible, 10 to 9. I guess I was looking at a picture of him from when he was hired back in 2001. I look at him right now, I look and say, he doesn't look any different. You know, maybe color of his hair is a little different, but he looks pretty much the same. I've had the privilege of knowing him for several years now, and he certainly has taught me a lot of things, and I've really, over the last while, as mayor, I've consulted with him on several occasions on various issues, and he comes across, well, not comes across, he provides very solid, methodical advice, and certainly as a municipality, we're going to miss him. And recognizing that he's been a firefighter for 40 years now, and he's been with the municipality for nearly 20. So if he hung, so we're looking at 19 years right now, and he served in various roles, but mainly as a firefighter, as the fire chief. So on behalf of council, on behalf of the municipality, I want to thank you so much for everything you've done in Chatham-Kent, because this community would not be the same without all the things you've done. So thank you very much, and we wish you all the best in whatever you're going to be doing from here on in the next 40 years. So. Are you going to turn and run now, or are you going to stick it out? Closed session reports.
I think he wants to stick around and listen to me close off the closed session report one more time. Congratulations, Bob. I'd make a motion that we accept the closed session report of Monday, December 9th. Not in attendance was Councillor McGrail. Council directed administration on proposed disposition and acquisition of land by the municipality and advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose with regard to 508 Richmond Street, Section 239, 2C and F of the Municipal Act. This item was added to the agenda by a 2/3 vote this evening. Council received information on proposed disposition of land by the municipality or local board and advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose with regard to WDC Rail, Section 239, 2C and F of the Municipal Act 2001, and advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose with regard to winter sidewalk and highway maintenance, Section 239, 2F, Municipal Act 2001.
Any seconder for that? Councillor Finn. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Oh, sorry, we're still on the electronic side. Time to vote. Keep me in line.
All votes are in. Motion passes 15-0.
Item 20, approval of communication items. Councillor Solomon, seconded. Oh, thought I saw that hand over there. Councillor Oche, seconded. Any items to discuss? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item 21, non-agenda business. I want to add one, just to start with one, that Councillor C. McGregor previously asked for an update on the United Way campaign, and I was going to ask Ms. Hoffman if she could provide that update.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To date, we have had 26 donors, about 13,405 pledges made. We also had a 50-50 draw that our loaned rep, Christopher Cartier, helped lead, and that raised $670.
Okay, so who wants to? Councillor Pinsino.
Thank you, Worship. Just bring everybody's attention to the Thamesville Parade, Santa Claus Parade this Friday night at 7 p.m. and the Ridgetown Parade is at 1 p.m. on Saturday.
Councillor Finn.
Just one, that over the holidays, everybody have a good Christmas. And I'd like to say good luck to Jessie McPherson as she travels to Slovakia over the holidays to play with Team Canada.
Councillor B. McGregor.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Out behind the Civic Center, there's a light display up, and it's in partnership with the CKHA, the Home for the Holidays Festival. So started last weekend. It's a terrific event. There's little bonfires out there with roasting marshmallows. Unfortunately, not right now, Councillor Solomon.
Yeah.
We have a better crowd, though. And it continues next weekend. So on Sunday, Santa will be there. There'll be decoration making. The bonfires will be lit again with some marshmallows. Really great opportunity to get out and celebrate with CKHA Foundation.
Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Yes, the Santa Claus Parade this Saturday at 1 o'clock, Ridgetown. It's the Kiwanis' 70th parade. They've been doing it for 70 years. They still laugh about their first parade because they got uptown. They got stuck. The floats were left there for 3 days because Ridgetown had snow removal 70 years ago. So we hope this year goes better. Thank you.
We've come a long way, haven't we? Councillor Hall.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Passing this information along for Councillor Foss. It's the downtown Dresden Christmas night market on Saturday. It goes from 4 till 8:30. Main Street, Dresden, food, drinks, lights, shopping, and I believe it's the Dresden Kinsman's Parade that night as well. We went there last year. It's an awesome time if you have the chance. Make sure you go out 4 to 8:30, downtown Dresden.
Councillor OJ.
Thank you, Your Worship. 2 Friday nights left, this coming Friday and next Friday, the 20th. If you bring your kids out to Tilbury Lions Christmas Light Festival, you'll be able to meet Santa on Friday night at the lawn bowling building from 6 to 8 p.m. Like I say, this Friday, the 13th, and then the 20th as well. And then on New Year's Eve, we have First Night, which is totally free to bring your kids. We're going skating from 6 till 12:30 in the morning. Free face painting, free glitter tattoos, free hot dogs, hot chocolate, Timbits, popcorn, a little art corner for the kids as well, all at Tilbury Arena. So anybody who would like to show up, please do.
Fantastic. Item 22, reading of the bylaws, first and second. Councillor Solomon, seconded by Councillor Hall. Any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Third and final reading. Councillor Finn, seconded by Councillor Sakachi. Any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Resolution of Council. Sorry, I have one thing to say here. I was a very important note that says, don't forget to end the meeting with a Merry Christmas and a Happy Holidays and a fantastic New Year, which we've had an amazing 2019. Let's make it even better in 20. Over to Councillor C. McGregor to wrap it up.
Thank you. Through the mayor, I would move that Chatham-Kent Council adjourn to its next meeting to be held on Monday, January 13, 2020, and the Chatham-Kent Council authorize itself to meet in closed session on that day to discuss any matters permitted by the Municipal Act.
Seconded by Councillor Latimer. All in favor? Opposed? Carried? All right, somebody come back. It's a close.